I think we're recording. All right, thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and call this session of the City of Issaquah Hearing Examiner to order. For the record, today is Wednesday, February 21st at 9:03 a.m. We have one item on the agenda today, number PP 20-00001, a request for preliminary approval of the proposed plat of Edwards Plat, a 4.1 acre parcel located on the western side of Mine Hill Road Southwest, immediately north of Southwest Francis Lane. The proposed plat would subdivide the property into 10 single-family residential lots with associated internal roadway, stormwater detention facility, landscaping, and frontage improvements, as well as a fairly major mitigation project associated with historical coal mines that underlie the site. My name is Alex Seidels. I'm an independent hearing examiner whom the city has selected to hold certain land use hearings like this one. It will be my role today to collect evidence in the form of exhibits and testimony to determine whether the proposal is consistent with the city code, comprehensive plan, and the subdivision approval criteria. To that end, I received and reviewed 38 exhibits in advance of the hearing. These include the staff report, the application and project narrative, vicinity map, preliminary plat map, landscaping plan, stormwater plan, critical area map, critical area study, a lighting plan, significant tree plan, geotechnical report, mine hazard report and mitigation plan, arborist report, hydrogeologic report, traffic analysis, environmental review materials related to the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA, a SEPA determination of non-significance that was issued January 12, 2024 with accompanying staff memo, the public notice materials, and public comments. I will admit all these exhibits into the record at this time. Should anyone have additional exhibits they would like admitted into the record, please let me know when it is your opportunity to testify. I will go ahead and address admitting additional exhibits at that time. Speaking of testimony, all testimony today will be under oath or affirmation, and that's because if my decision on this application were to be appealed, the recording of today's hearing, along with the admitted exhibits and my written decision, would serve as the foundation for any such appeal. I may ask questions of those that are testifying. I am not trying to trip anyone up or embarrass anyone. I am just trying to ensure that I have a clear understanding of the proposal. And that way, after the record closes, I can produce a decision that is hopefully clear and legally defensible. The order that we typically follow, and I think we will be following today, is first we will hear from city staff who will provide an overview of the proposal along with any recommendations that the city may have. Following that, we will hear from the applicant to see if there is any additional information they feel myself or members of the public should be aware of in advance of my decision being issued. After that, members of the public will have an opportunity to testify. Following public testimony, we will turn back to the city and the applicant as necessary for any response. Everyone wishing to testify will have an opportunity to do so, but just like at an in-person hearing, this will not involve question and answer sessions or objections or multiple speaking opportunities for members of the public. So with that, I think we can get started. Who will be appearing on behalf of the city this morning?
I will.
Good morning, ma'am. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. And I see your name spelled on my screen as V-A-L-E-R-I-A, last name P-O-R-T-E-R. Is that correct?
It should be spelled V-A-L-E-R-I-E.
Oh, well, that is how it's spelled. I must have just said it wrong, but I wrote it down correctly. And Ms. Porter, what is your role with the city?
I am an associate planner in the Community Planning and Development Department with the city.
Thank you so much. Ms. Porter, did my summary of the exhibits track with what you were hoping I would review in advance of today's hearing?
Yes, but before I go into my presentation, can I just clarify that I believe it's exhibit 34. There was a placeholder that you actually received the affidavit for the Seattle Times.
Let me just check my copy of Exhibit 34. It is a placeholder on my screen. I do not think I have the affidavit. Let me just check one moment here. I don't believe I have the actual affidavit at this time. It's not a big deal. You or Ms. Bear can send it to me when we're done this morning.
Yes, I'll send it right after the meeting.
Thank you. And do you have any other exhibits that you're planning to introduce, like a PowerPoint or anything like that?
No, not at this time.
Okay. And did any late-breaking public comments come in that I need to read?
Nope, no public comments were received.
Very good. Well, let's go ahead with your presentation then, please, Ms. Porter.
Great, thank you. All right, Candy, can you just confirm that you can see my slides, please?
It's confirmed.
Thank you. Again, my name is Valerie Porter. Welcome, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm here to talk to you about the Edwards Plat. There we go. So just to start off with a little bit of a context, this site is located at 240 Southwest Francis Lane. For those familiar with the area, the major intersection is Mine Hill Road and Wildwood Boulevard. It's located to the north of this intersection. The parcel is located within the Squawk Mountain sub area. It is zoned single family suburban, and the comprehensive plan has this parcel designated as low density residential, and the scope of work is compliant with the comprehensive plan. The project is proposing to subdivide a 4.1 acre site into 10 single family lots, and the project will also consist of frontage improvements, which will include widening Mine Hill Road to allow for on-site, on-street parking. The proposal will also construct an internal road, which is seen as Road A on the plans. This road will provide access to 9 of the 10 lots. Road A and Mine Hill Road both have requested deviations from the street standards, which are administrative reviews and approvals. So this part of the project is not reviewed by the hearing examiner. The project has also requested or is also proposing to construct a long driveway that will provide access to Lot 1 as well as Track 999. This track will house an underground stormwater vault, and then on top will provide some open space amenity for the development. The stormwater vault also requested a administrative deviation, which staff reviewed and has been approved. All of these deviations can be reviewed in exhibits 22 through 24. All area outside of the development will be placed in tracks for either critical area or tree retention purposes. All right, this project provided public notification in accordance with the Issaquah Municipal Code. So per code, the project is required to hold a neighborhood meeting prior to making an actual submittal for the plat. So a neighborhood meeting was held in August of 2020. After a submittal was provided to the city, notice of applications were sent via mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet in October 2020. And during the project, the Issaquah Municipal Code did change to require an environmental neighborhood meeting for all parcels that had critical areas or were impacted by adjacent property or critical areas. And so this meeting was held in February 2022. And in January, the city issued a mitigated determination of non-significance for the project that had a joint comment and appeal period, and that started January 12th and ended on January 26th of 2024. And for this meeting, public notice was provided. There was a site posting. Property owners received letters via mail. It was posted on the city's website, and the meeting was also posted in the newspaper. All of these could be seen in exhibits 30 through 33. All right, here are the development standards for single family suburban. Typically, development standards are applied to individual lots, but this particular project is proposing to utilize the cluster housing provisions. And instead of the development standards being applied to each individual lot, they're going to be applied to the exterior boundaries of the entire parcel. Cluster housing provisions allow parcels that are 2 acres or more that have critical areas to apply the development standards to the entire or to the exterior in exchange for the critical areas being placed in either an easement or a tract to remain undeveloped forever. So, due to the limited level of detail at this stage, development standards will be reviewed once building permits come in for review. So the site is heavily encumbered by critical area. There is severe coal mine hazards, which you can kind of see here in red, and this large area here. And the site is also encumbered by moderate coal mine hazard area. That area is kind of shaded in yellow. And then there's also a class 2 stream, Mine Hill Creek, that enters the site here and bisects the site into east and western portions that has a 75-foot buffer. Today, there's structures and impervious surface currently in the in the critical areas or the associated buffers. So as part of the project, the applicant is proposing to remove all structures and restore this area with natural vegetation. Much of the development is going to occur outside of the critical areas, but there is this portion here on my screen, it's orange, that is currently classified as severe coal mine hazard area. And that is the only area that will be mitigated as a result of this development. And so reclamation work is being proposed to basically allow for this development. Staff from various divisions and departments have reviewed this project for compliance with all applicable codes and recommends approval of the Edwards preliminary plat subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. At this time, I will take any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Porter. I appreciate the presentation there. I do have a few questions for you. I guess first, could you please send me a copy of that PowerPoint and we'll make it Exhibit 38? I know all the information in there is in the other exhibits, but I liked seeing it all in one place right now. I thought you did a good job picking out the most important aspects of this project. I think I need to get a handle on what version of the code applies. I understand that this application was deemed complete, according to the staff report, March 6, 2019. So presumably whatever version of the code was in effect at that time governs this project, right?
Correct.
Have there been any changes to the code between 2019 and today that
Yes.
I should know about?
So yes, so in June 2023, the city did a major overhaul of the land use code. So we did confirm with our attorneys that the project is vested to the code that was in place, I believe in 2019, but it's not vested to procedures. So to kind of help should anything change in the future, I added the cluster housing provisions and the critical area code as exhibits. So it's for reference, basically for ease. But should anything change as far as process, that you would use the code that's currently in place right now.
Okay, let me just make sure that I have all of the old code provisions that I need. So I see Exhibit 36 here is the code on subdivisions, Chapter 18.13.
Sorry,
Exhibit 35 here is the section on cluster housing, 18.07. And you said you'd also given me the critical areas code. That one I don't think I see.
I misspoke. It was I thought it was the critical area, but it's just the subdivision.
All right. Well, I think I will need the critical areas one, especially that section that says, what do you do with a severe mine hazard area? So we'll make the critical areas ordinance Exhibit 39, and you can just send it to me in the same format that you sent these other codes. They look pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just would like to make a clarification. Although the coal mine hazard areas are regulated by the critical area code, we don't have a ton of detail for coal mine hazards. We actually reference the King County's code. So a lot of the kind of requirements that we have are based off of peer review and are addressed in the SEPA mitigation. So I
Well,
definitely can provide it, but I just wanted to make that clarification
yeah,
that if you're
that's my
looking for a
understanding.
lot, it's not
Yeah,
there.
I'm not expecting to see like a required buffer or anything like that for the
Okay.
coal mines. As far as I can tell, you just, hire a geologist to study it and then do whatever that person recommends, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I still want to see it because I have to cite it in my decision anyways. So
Okay.
even though I'm not expecting to find anything crazy in there, I still need to read the actual text.
Okay.
So like I said, we'll call that Exhibit 39. I don't think I need any other code sections. I don't know. Is there like landscaping requirements that I would have to know about?
There are tree retention requirements, and I
They're in
can provide that.
1807 though, right?
Can you repeat the question?
The tree retention requirements are already in 1807 though, right? Which I already have.
You don't have all of 1807, but they
Uh,
are in 18. They're in 18. They're in a different chapter. I can't remember. I
okay.
think it's 12.
Better
So I can
send
provide
me
that.
tree retention as well. We'll call that Exhibit 40. And then if there's any others, because what I don't want to do is have to call everyone back here or like reopen the record to get yet another missing code section. So
Right.
just be as thorough as you possibly can. I don't even really know what to ask you. It's a little bit unfair to put this on your shoulders, but I think that's where I have to put it. Any other code sections?
I have a clarifying question. So, this also references the street standards. So, like I was mentioning, Mine Hill Road and the internal road are based off of street standards. That has also been updated. Do you want a copy of the street standards?
I think we'd better. Yeah, we'll call that 41. And then I'll leave it to your judgment what other standards or what other code sections I may need.
Okay.
Just throw them in if you think they're there. If
Okay.
I, if when I sit down to write this thing, I find a code section that I don't already have, I'll probably reopen the record for the very limited purpose of me getting that section from you. So I'll email it to Ms. Baer and ask her to ask you to send that to me. So that will delay this whole process. So the more thorough you can be upfront in terms of getting me these code sections, the faster we can get this done. There is one code section that I don't believe we are vested to. Let me, here, I'll call up a code section for you here. I'll try to display it on my screen once I have it on my screen. This is the code section on the vesting rules here, 18.390.020. All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. One sec. I don't know if I have that ability. Ah, I do. Okay. Let's see what I can do here. Hold on, I have to adjust various settings here on my computer in order to give it permission. All right, let me try now to share the screen. Sorry, this is taking so long.
See it.
I might not be able to share my screen in any kind of like reasonable time frame here.
We see it.
Oh, you are able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All I see is, myself and you. So, okay. So
Okay.
is it displaying at 18.390.010?
Yes.
Yeah, so here we go. It's actually 18.390.020 exceptions. Stormwater regulations in Chapter 13.27 IMC, permit fees and impact fees are not considered zoning and land use control ordinances for vesting purposes. Projects will be evaluated based on standards in place at the time of approval, not application. So as I read this, Ms. Porter, I think that for stormwater purposes, I have to use whatever the current code says for stormwater, not whatever was in place in 2019, right?
Correct.
And I think this is relevant because back in 2019, the rule was you use the 2014 ecology manual, but I think under the current code, the rule is you use the 2019 one. And then I think there's been like a 2021 Issaquah update, right?
Correct.
So you agree I'm doing the 2019 version of ecology's manual with the 2021 Issaquah update?
Correct.
All right, let me take down my screen then. So where I think this is potentially relevant to my review, Exhibit 20 is the applicant's drainage report, or the preliminary drainage report prepared by LDC Incorporated. And according to this Exhibit 20 report, it reviewed the project for compliance with the 2014 manual, but I don't think there's been an updated review for compliance with the 2019 manual. And I know there've been some pretty big changes, especially related to like bringing the property back into a forested condition and so forth. So I guess I'll throw it over to you, Ms. Porter. What should I do here with regards to this issue of stormwater?
I will need to consult, have a discussion with our stormwater reviewer to understand how we should go about that. May I have till the end of the day to provide a response?
You sure can. And I see somebody's got their hand raised, probably looking to help you out here on this question. And, we certainly can have more than one city witness. It doesn't just have to be the Valerie Porter show here. If there's other members of the team, we can bring them on later. So I think what we'll do is I have a bunch of other questions for you on issues other than stormwater. So we'll circle back to stormwater. Maybe by then there'll be some other city witness who is ready to chime in and we can figure out something. And if not, then I'm certainly ready to hold the hearing open in case we need to come up with some other plan. So we'll just put a pin in stormwater for now and move on to some other issues. What can you tell me about the surrounding land uses in each direction, north, south, east, and west?
Yes. One second. All right. So the parcel is surrounded by residential parcels. In every direction, everything is single family residential.
Okay. And are there any sensitive land uses anywhere nearby, any daycare centers or schools or anything that could potentially be affected by this?
I believe there's a school in the area, but I don't believe it's very close by.
Okay. Speaking of schools, do we need any like school impact fees or anything of that nature?
The project will be subject to school impact fees, which will be assessed at the building permit phase or at building permit issuance.
All right. I don't see a, oopsie, it's because I'm looking in the wrong document. Yes, I see that as one of your proposed conditions of approval. Condition 17, impact and mitigation fees are required for each new single-family residence. The applicant will receive credit for the single-family dwelling that existed. The following impact fees will be required: transportation, fire, schools, parks, general government, police, bicycle, and pedestrian. Okay, all right. I don't think I have any further questions for you on that. I will ask the applicant whether they object to any of those fees, but I think we're good for now. You mentioned during your testimony earlier that the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Obviously, the comprehensive plan calls for this to be low density residential. Are there any other comprehensive plan goals and policies that are relevant that I should think about here? Perhaps some relating to mines or something like that.
No, none that come to mind.
Okay. So when you say it's consistent with the comp plan, you just mean that the future land use map has this as low density residential. Obviously, this is a low density development. We're consistent.
Correct.
All right. If I were to look through the comp plan, would I see anything related to mines or mine reclamation or mine mitigation that would cause me to think this project is not consistent with the comp plan?
No, the comprehensive plan discusses critical areas, but it doesn't get into extreme detail specific to coal mines. So no.
Okay.
And in general, typically comp plan, we try to have these policies that then kind of flow into our code. So in theory, they should match up.
All right. Well, comprehensive plan consistency is one of the criteria that I have to look at. So I'll take a look through there. But I'm not expecting to see anything crazy in there. I just want to make sure I agree that it's all consistent. All right. Walk me through the open space requirements for this subdivision. What's required for one of these cluster residential ones, and then what's being provided here?
As part of the cluster housing provision, the project is required to provide, I believe, 15% of the site area to be open, usable, or what is it? Usable open space. And so there's a difference in our how we define open space versus open usable open space. So open space is like, again, the critical areas that you kind of place in a tract, that's open space, but usable open space is like playgrounds, trails, and things of that. So the project is providing common use and open, open space. Again, as mentioned in the presentation, track 999, which will house the underground stormwater vault, will also provide open space. And the project is proposing.
And track 999, I think, is outside the critical areas in their buffers, right? So
Correct,
we're okay to
correct.
build a playground on track 999, for
Yes,
example. Okay.
yes. And the 15% requirement, the applicant must provide approximately 0.28 acres. And the project is proposing to provide, I believe, 0.28 acres. So they are meeting the minimum requirement.
And that 0.28 acres is not just track 999, it's also all the critical area tracts.
It is track 997, track 999, and just those two tracks.
All right, let me take a look here at the plan set. So tract 997, and what was the other one you said?
Track
999.
999.
Okay. And then what about, tracts 994, 5, 6, and 3, all the ones that are in the critical areas? Do those not count as open space?
Not as usable open space, no.
Is there a separate requirement for like general open space? Like in addition to the usable, there also has to be, swampland or streamland or whatever.
No minimum requirements, but again, because they're using the cluster housing provisions and they have critical areas on their site, they're required to put the critical areas in that
I
tract or
see. Right. So that helps them like hit their density requirements, for example. But
right, right, right.
it's not an open space requirement, but functionally they have to do it anyways. Otherwise, they'd be way over on density or lot size or whatever.
So how cluster housing provisions work, you're basically taking the density that would be used for the critical areas and applying it only to that developable area. So
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And I'll take a look at the math in the staff report, but I'm sure it all checks out. All right. Let's see here. We'll get into the mines in just a moment. Let me make sure if I have any other non-mining questions first so we can do it. I had a question about the road standard deviations and stormwater deviations, but I think you already answered that. It's already been approved, so I can't really go in and tinker with it, and I don't even really have to think about it, huh? All right. Tell me about significant tree retention. What's the rule and what's being retained here? And also, is this another section of the old code that I would need a copy of?
yes, and so tree retention and landscaping is addressed in the same section. So we discussed providing it, so you'll have it.
Okay.
So the project is required to provide 30% of the total tree caliber to be retained. And then the project is also required to have density requirements for each lot. So because we don't quite know what the design is for the individual lots, we'll make it a requirement at building permit, but we believe that each lot can provide 2 trees per lot. So, but The project is required to retain 455 total tree caliper, and a total of 629 calipers are being proposed for retention.
And again, that includes those that are within the critical area buffers as well.
It's outside of the critical area buffers. So I
Oh,
think
excellent.
that they're proposing that lot, it's towards the back. It's I think the yellow one. That
Where can I
yeah,
take a look? Do we have something that shows this? Maybe the
yes,
landscape
it
plan?
is track 995. That's going to be a tree
I see it.
retention.
So I'm taking a look at Exhibit 7 here, the landscaped plan,
Yes.
tree retention tract 994. Yeah, look at that.
And then I think I misspoke. Yes, you can use critical areas as to retain trees.
Yeah, and it looks like that's exactly what they're doing as well.
Yes.
All right, and if I read the significant tree retention code, it's going to allow this scheme. The trees don't have to be retained on the development lots. It's okay to retain them elsewhere.
Yes, and because right now it's still the entire lot. So
Gotcha. I see. All right. We had some public comment here on traffic and parking on Mine Hill Road. Do you have any response to the public comments that we received?
I believe a response was provided in the staff report. This was drafted by the reviewer or the engineer reviewing the project, which is also the engineering manager. Unfortunately, she is not here to provide a response. But my general, I have a general understanding of it, which is as part of the project review, we did look at traffic, requested a traffic analysis. We also did a traffic concurrency, and both comply. As far as Mine Hill Road is a very narrow road. It's been in very narrow for many years, and so we've been struggling with trying to bring the road into compliance because of the placement of the homes. We can't just kind of go in and widen it. We would then kind of be in folks, front yards, and it would kind of create some issues. So, to the best of our ability, we are widening Mine Hill Road to allow for access of 2-lane roads, but then also addressing the issue that's on Mine Hill Road, which is adding additional street parking to the road. So, and again, this has been reviewed by various departments, engineers within the community planning department, as well as engineers in public works, and both agree that the proposal is compliant and will allow for emergency vehicles to properly to access the road. And so I believe that the project is compliant.
Okay, and you mentioned in your earlier testimony that Mine Hill Road would be lined, by which I take it you mean they were going to be painting lines. Did I mishear you?
That it was going to be it's going to be widened.
Oh,
That's what
widened. Yeah, it must be.
yes.
I thought you said it would be lined. I thought, oh, they're painting lines. I don't see what that will accomplish. I see widened, and that's more consistent with what I'm seeing here in the staff report. Yes.
Yes.
So it's an actual physical frontage improvement, providing additional pavement width, and this will allow for more parallel parking, which was part of the public comment objection. I took a look at the TIA. It seemed like really low numbers of vehicles. Presumably there'll be some traffic impact fee, but I didn't see any recommendation for any sight line or sight distance or sight line improvements or anything like that. Are there any issues related to that?
There is an I don't want to say an issue, but staff will continue to be looking at site distance once we kind of understand where the coal mine hazard areas are properly delineated. Once we understand that, then we'll confirm site distance. We believe that the project is feasible, but we just need a little bit more information and as far as site distance.
Well, that certainly makes sense. I do see a comment in Exhibit 28 that says the site distance to the north is a little bit short of the AASHTO standard. Do I need to take any kind of action to mitigate that?
I believe it's addressed in the SEPA, so it's already a mitigation measure.
All right, let's take a look here.
If not, then it may be a condition of approval in the staff report. But
So I've got 13. This is the mitigated DNS. Let me see.
Oh, I sorry, again misspoke. It's condition 19 in the staff report, or condition 13 in the staff report.
Condition 13. A site distance evaluation demonstrating compliance with Issaquah street standards must be submitted by the applicant and gain approval prior to issuance of any permit authorizing the construction of Road A. The site distance evaluation is to be submitted after the extent of the coal mine remediation work. Okay, I agree. That seems to be a pretty reasonable way of handling it. Okay, let me see. I think that was my last non-mine related question. So that's the good news, but the bad news is now we can talk mines, which at least in my mind is the kind of the big issue with this property. So we'll just kind of march through things that jumped out at my review. So Exhibit 17 is Issaquah Engineering's geotechnical report. It's a very thorough discussion of the mines that are there. They say that the number one mine is deep enough to be a declassified mine. And this is very significant for the project because if it's still a mine hazard, you know, then that map that shows everything outside of the mine hazard areas is going to look very different. So is there any reason that I should be skeptical or require more review of this claim that mine number one is declassified?
I do not think so. But again, this isn't my area of expertise. Is it okay if I consult with the engineering staff and then get back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you know, you can just defer to the engineering staff altogether. If there's someone from engineering who's available to testify on this issue, we can just make them answer all of the questions. So you don't, that's one of the advantages of being part of a team. So do you want
Yes.
to some, you know, engineer that we've got?
Unfortunately, the planning manager isn't able to attend, so she cannot speak on that. But we do have Stacy Rush here to discuss stormwater when you're ready.
Okay. Well, is there anyone that can talk mines with me, or is that just going to be you?
Look like it is just going to be me.
All right. Well, then even though it's not your area of expertise, I'm still going to have to ask you about it. Um, so we're just taking Icicle's word for it that the mine number one is appropriately declassified, right?
Correct. But I believe the applicant may have their consultant here who drafted the report, so they may be able to speak on that as well.
All right. Well, yeah, certainly I want to hear, you know, from the applicant. Maybe they've even got someone from Icicle here that can kind of, you know, show their work a little bit on that. That would certainly be helpful to the applicant.
Yes.
Um, uh, I do see that this project went through third-party review with WSP. I forget what that stands for. Can you tell me about the third-party review that the city brought in for this?
Yes. So initially, when the project started, the city has a procedure that any critical area reports that come in are going to be reviewed by a third party. So the stream and wetlands report was reviewed by a reviewer, and then the coal mine, or excuse me, geotech gets a double peer review. So it was initially reviewed by Boulder and blanking on the other one. And I think eventually those two companies combined into WSP. And so um, there were several rounds of reviews that was reviewed, and they took a look at, again, steep slopes, coal mines, and just everything geotech.
Yeah, I don't have any questions about the steep slopes or the stream, because as far as I can tell, we're outside the buffer of those critical areas anyways. But the mine, I do have some questions about. So the peer review is documented in Exhibit 21. It's this kind of large table. It's a little
Yes.
bit hard for me to follow along. So maybe call up Exhibit 21 on your screen and tell me what I'm looking at when I read this thing.
So what that is when we send out the comments for peer review, this is what the table that the peer reviewer uses to make sure all of the comments were addressed. And so if a comment or a goes through different rounds of comments, you'll say first round of comments, second round, to make sure that it was properly addressed. And so the applicant chose to have this because it spoke to some portion of the coal mine hazards. So let me see if I can pull up that exhibit. said 21.
Yeah.
Here we go. So again, yes. So the first column is WSP's comment to the applicant saying these are areas of concerns. And then the applicant then provided responses on, and then again, peer reviewer and then the applicant.
Okay. All right. And it looks like the peer reviewer at least is satisfied with the final version of Issacle's report, which I believe is the one that I'm using, Exhibit 17. Issacle's report says that all significant risks associated with abandoned mine workings have been eliminated or mitigated. And it also says appropriate mitigation shall be based upon a critical area study that has been prepared by a qualified professional. Ms. Porter, have all the significant risks been mitigated? Aren't we still building Road A right on top of a severe risk area?
A portion of it, yes.
Well, that
And so
doesn't go on.
sorry. I was going to say, I believe the thought process is right now it's considered severe coal mine hazard, but after the reclamation work is done, then it would then be declassified so that it's no longer considered a critical area. But I would like to defer to the consultant who wrote the report on
Yes,
that.
and I see a lot of people are raising their hands, eager to chime in on this issue. Don't worry, we're going to hear from everyone today. But first, I'm going to hear from Ms. Porter, just because she's the project lead for the city on that. She can call in other team members as necessary if they're available, and certainly we're going to give the applicant and the public a chance to weigh in on all of this. So we've got all day, folks. Don't worry, everyone will get a chance to chime in, and I do want to hear from everybody because I need to make sure that I'm understanding this and not missing anything. So I'm glad that people are eager to participate because I'm eager to listen to all of you. So what's the timing then of remediation? Are they going to actually, go into the mine and shore it up, so to speak, and bring in all this fill and all the other stuff? Are they going to do that first before they build everything?
Oh, yes, definitely. They have to prepare the site before they can get to that next stage. Well, first they're going to have to delineate all of the coal mine hazard areas, and then they'll do the reclamation work with a special um, someone from Icicle Creek on site should anything go awry to provide any recommendations or how to properly mitigate. And then they'll start doing, building roads and things like that, installing
Well,
utilities.
that certainly sounds like a reasonable order to proceed. I just want to make sure that the conditions that I'm being asked to approve here reflect that order. So for example, when I go to condition 18, and condition 18 basically just says do everything that's in the MDNS, which I like, by the way. I like the fact that the MDNS conditions are tied to the conditions of approval. I think everyone should always do it that way, because otherwise how do you enforce the MDNS mitigation measures? But when I read the text of the mitigation measures that are in, they're both in the MDNS and here in proposed condition 18, step 1 says they have to prepare a report describing the process. Number 2 says prior to the remediation work, they must design and install appropriate provisions to ensure stability of Mine Hill Road. That seems good. Number 3, prior to coal mine remediation work, they have to do additional exploration work to fully delineate the coal mine tunnels. That sounds reasonable. It says number 4, the coal mine mitigation of AC2 mine number 4 ventilation chute hazard, once delineated, will correspond with the number 4 water level tunnel mitigation effort. These mitigation efforts must extend north. Number 5, then a final engineering design report. Then number 6, the coal remediation proposal includes steel meshing installation approximately 8 to 10 feet below the ground surface in the area of the number 4 main access decline. Prior to city approval of construction related to mediation, specific vertical clearance must be defined. Fine. 7, once site conditions have been confirmed, the final abandoned mine land mitigation report must be specific to the final proposed lot layout. Final report must also be consistent, with all of this other stuff. All of that seems fine, and I don't have any objection to any of that. In my mind, the part that's missing is, where does it say they have to actually physically reclaim the mine before they build anything? Because this is telling them, here are reports that you have to prepare. Here's what needs to go in those reports. Here's the order of the different reports you're going to churn out. But where's the one that says, and then go actually do the work? Am I just misunderstanding something about this?
Um, I understand your point. I don't think staff we would issue any permits if that work hadn't already
Well, I'm
occurred.
sure not, but where does it say
Right.
that?
Right. But no, I get your point. So I don't think it says very clearly you must do this work prior to any permit issuance. Um, let's see. I'm going to ask Sam, who's one of the engineers, perhaps he can speak to this.
Okay.
Sam, are you available?
Well, we'll bring him in just a moment.
Okay.
I want to get through all my questions for you, and then we'll bring in the rest of the team. I know we've got someone standing by for stormwater. We've got someone standing by for this issue of when do they have to do the work, and maybe there'll be someone to talk to me about the review of the Issaquah reports as well. So we'll see what folks come up with. All right, so I think I've got that. And you may have answered some of my other questions. Like, for example, Exhibit 17, the Icicle report, says further ground proofing will be required to delineate the southern edge of the mine in the vicinity of WAO 120. I'm not entirely sure where WAO 120 is, but it sounds to me like there's some question, even among the experts, as to how far south the mine extends. Where that concerns me is, as we saw in your map of the critical areas, and we can refer back to that at Exhibit 6, it's this nice color-coded map, we're already pretty close to the southern end of the mine here. In fact, Road A is right on top of the thing. If that mine is further south than what we think, then we're starting to get into the actual residential portions of the parcels. So I'm a little bit worried that, I'm being asked to approve a plat that says, here's where you're allowed to build your house, and then only later do we delineate the mine. What's going to happen if it turns out that that mine extends quite a bit farther south than what we think, right into the area that I've already approved for a house?
Well, as part of the plat process, so the plat, we're just allowing the development of or the subdivision of the homes. But if the ground isn't prepared for that, then we wouldn't allow them to move forward with the final plat. Or
I'm saying.
we wouldn't
So,
allow them to move forward with building permits.
yeah, I
They
guess
can
what
move
would
forward with
happen
the
is,
plat.
yeah,
It's
they'd have a lot that
right,
says, here's where your house goes. And then when they tried to build the thing, they would end up getting denied. So maybe it's just putting the risk on the developer.
right.
Hmm.
And so I do know that, typically, because worked on another project with coal mines, but typically when we get to that coal or the building permit stage, there is a report for each lot that says what can happen. Like the homes have to either have pilings or you can't have a basement, things like that, specific for that lot. So again, if the conditions do not allow for a home, then we won't issue a building permit. You'll just have to get the site ready to allow for a house. So again, you'll have a lot, but you
Right.
won't have a house.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Hmm. Do I need to put something in the conditions of approval that says that, or does that just kind of happen automatically as a function of the code?
It happens automatically as a function of the code, but if you feel more confident having something, I I think that's fine.
Well, I mean, I don't like to, load up these things with, conditions of approval that they would have to do anyways. I like the conditions of approval to be specific to the project. I don't want to condition 19, you have to obey the code, because everybody always has to obey the code. I don't think that
Right,
adds anything. All
right.
right, well, if you think the code would prohibit a construction permit unless, if that mine goes further south, then I'm not inclined to to add that to the condition of approval. All right, let's take a look here.
And I just would like to say, should, the city get information that the mine impacts adjacent parcels or, Mine Hill Road, we will not allow the applicant to proceed unless we know that there's no impact to any adjacent properties or anything like that. So it has to be focused on their site and addressing
Right.
their site.
Well, and that's kind of related to my next question. I saw something in Exhibit 17 that says dewatering the upgradient mine workings could cause hydrogeologic changes, which could be detrimental. Sounds like there's some potential risk here, even with the mitigation plan. The mitigation plan itself might cause further problems. So this gets back to my timing question. Does it make sense to hold off on approval of this plat until they've done some of the mitigation work and we can figure out where the lots need to go? Or do we approve the lots and then just hope that the mitigation work doesn't ruin them?
I feel like you should consult someone who's a little bit more, has a better understanding of the geotech conditions. So I would have to defer to either an engineer in my department or see if the consultant can kind of address some of your concerns.
Right. Well, and you say there's no one from city engineering that's here, huh?
There
Oh,
is an engineer. I believe he can speak to some of your concerns. He might not be able to address all of them, but
okay. All right. Well, that was my last question for you, Miss Porwell. Let me just check that before I let you off the hook. Yes, that was my last question. All right. Well, thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate your patience with me as I dig into areas that are not your expertise, but mining's not my expertise either. And yet I have to issue a decision on this. So, someone's got to hold my hand through this. And I thought you did a really good job holding it as far as you could. And you're certainly entitled to rely on the rest of your team for those questions that you can't answer. So excellent work, Ms. Porter. I feel better educated about this project, and that's the whole point of these hearings. So let's turn now to any other members of the city team who wish to testify. I know we had someone, Sam, I think it was, and then you said there was someone else on stormwater. Maybe
yes,
we
Stacy
better,
Fresh.
let's do the mine stuff first while it's still fresh in our minds, and then we'll circle back to stormwater. So who's coming in on mines?
I believe Sam.
All right, Mr. Sam, can you activate your microphone and camera? All right, very good. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And the spelling of your name, I can see on my screen, first name S-A-M, last name L-A-N-D-S-M-A-N. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Landsman, what is your role with the city?
Engineer with community planning and development.
Okay. All right, and I take it you've been listening to the back and forth between me and Ms. Porter?
Yes.
All right, what can you tell me about my questions about the mine, which are basically, when do we need to do this remediation work? And what will happen if it turns out that the mine goes further south, right there into the parcels? And how confident are we that mine number one has correctly been declassified? And what are the chances that the remediation work itself will cause further geotechnical problems? So I don't know how much of that you can answer, but those are the things that I'm thinking about right now.
So in the back and forth between the department and our peer review consultants, WSP, it was a double peer review, as Valerie was mentioning, with Golder, and then Wood is the other company, but then WSP acquired both those companies. So now Wood and Golder are working both as WSP. And so it's sort of still a double peer review because we're working with the same people, but they're both under one roof now. And so this project has been in the pipeline, pun not intended, for a while. And so we were trying to figure out a way just to see if there is a way to reasonably move it forward past the preliminary stage without having all of the coal mine work fully delineated. And the applicants can speak more to this, but I think that has to do to some degree with just getting continued financing for the project. Like if you don't meet this sort of stage, then, you know, financing for the project cannot continue because you haven't shown that you're going to move it far enough where we think it might actually get built. And so this is, we're trying to be helpful, but also reasonable. And so there is still coal mine remediation work that needs to be done, but with our peer reviewers, we have determined that the work that we've done now is enough with reasonable confidence that we can move forward into the construction permitting stage. It's not 100%, and the applicant does understand that this is at risk to a degree because, yeah, if there is, you know, additional coal mine remediation that comes up and it turns out that building conditions are not going to be as we, you know, completely expected in this preliminary plat stage, then there would be, you know, revisions done as necessary to make sure that we're not building over anything that would be unsafe. One thing I would also say is there's a condition on the preliminary plat. Let me double check which number is this. It's a condition 11. Prior to site work permit approval, an updated geotechnical report shall include an elevation of the proposed final site design elements.
Wait. I think I'm in the wrong. You said condition 11?
Yeah, I'm looking at condition 11 on PP 2001. Although, are you looking at different numbers in the staff report?
Hold on, Mr. Lansman, hold on. Prior to final inspection or issuance of occupancy of the last single-family building permit, grading or construction impacts to adjacent critical areas and associated buffers must be restored? It doesn't sound right.
Okay, then I guess we have different numbers. I'm looking at our permit tracking software. Maybe the numbers in the staff report are different.
All right, so what was the text of your proposed condition there?
Prior to site work permit approval, an updated geotechnical report shall ... All
right, let's see here. No, I don't have that. So you're in some kind of permit tracking website right now? What were you just now reading off of?
I was reading off of Trackit, which is our permit tracking software, and I'm getting information that you don't see that, and you see the staff report itself. So yeah. I need to pull up the staff report.
Right. Do you have that? Can you pull that up?
Yes, I can. Second. All right, we can come back to me.
All right. So before we do, I see something, you know, because we're here on Microsoft Teams, there is a chat function, and I see people are, you know, offering substantive comments in the chat function. Folks, none of those comments are part of the record. The record here is the audio. So I am not reading your chat comments, and they will play no role in my decision. So you might as well leave off the chat comments. They're a distraction and they are not helpful. If you have something you want to add, you certainly can do so when it is your turn to testify under oath or affirmation, and that time will come, but it has not come yet. All right, so Mr. Lansman, you wanted to come back on the permit conditions. But before we do, why don't you just tell me what you were going to say? What was the condition that you spotted there on your tracking software that you thought was good?
It just clarifies that there is a big difference between preliminary approval and construction permit approval. And so this preliminary plat approval does not authorize any construction, and we are not going to authorize we're not going to give building permits, which is a construction permit, whereas right now we're in a preliminary plat hearing. It's a land use permit.
Right.
And so this permit will not authorize any construction. Construction will later be authorized, assuming the applicant can meet the criteria under a site work permit and then associated building permits for each of the structures. And so we're not going to issue those building permits until we have, basically what this condition is saying is a final geotechnical report with all the information that we're saying in this preliminary plat phase that we sort of need to do for further investigations during the construction permit phase.
Well, I agree. That's totally appropriate and necessary. It's also consistent with what Ms. Porter said, which is we're not going to build anything until we know where the mine is and the remediation work has been done. But it sounded like even that language you were reading me just now, Mr. Landsman, it still just called for yet another report, right? It didn't actually say, do the remediation work before you build. Did it say that?
No.
Do we need something that does say that?
Maybe, but I mean, you can't build without your permits. So I feel like it's implicitly said. If the remediation work is not done and there is not a final geotechnical report that is delivered to the city and then subsequently reviewed and approved by the city and the consultant peer reviewers, the construction will not move forward.
So, but what is the final geotech report? Like, what if the final geotech report just says, here's the mitigation plan that will need to be performed? At that point, they have their final report, thereby meeting the condition. Can't the city issue a building permit? Because, hey, we've got the final report in hand. The problem is, where's the translation between whatever the final report says and the work that actually physically gets performed?
I'm talking about the final report is about the work that has been done.
Oh, I see. So after they do the report, they do this. After they do the work, they do this final report, and it's kind of an after action report.
Yeah, so that they can, for the record, say what has been done, have the mines been remediated to the specifications that the builders need to be able to build something safely.
Is that
so? Yeah, there's like a final plan for the work, but then there's the final report on you actually did it, and so we're interested in the latter, not the former.
Yeah. No, I'm interested in that too. Yeah. So, all right. So maybe this makes more sense because as I'm looking at the MDNS mitigation measures, which are incorporated into proposed condition 18, measure number 5 says the final engineering design report concerning excavation mitigation work on the number 4 main access decline next to Mine Hill Road will need to include supporting documentation and analysis. So when that mitigation measure is talking about the final engineering design report, are they talking about the after action report, or is that still something prior to mitigation?
That to me sounds like prior. You have the final design report to say what exactly you're going to do, and then you have a report afterwards saying what you did and showing us that it worked or that it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I would feel better if there was something even in the preliminary plat phase that said, you're not going to get your site development permit, as your site work permit or your building permit until you've produced the final geotech report. And by final geotech report, we mean, the report that documents the mine mitigation work that you actually did. I would feel, is it appropriate to put that in the preliminary phase, or am I asking too much of them right now?
I'd leave that decision up to the planner.
All right, so we may return to Ms. Porter then, and I'll ask her, what she thinks we should do in terms of that. All right, anything further for me on mines, Mr. Landsman?
Not at this time.
What about my question about the declassification of mine number 1? Is there any reason to be skeptical or require further review of that declassification?
I'd have to go back and check our records to see where the peer review is at on that. But
would you mind doing that while we move forward? Because you know, if the mine has just been kind of arbitrarily declassified, or if there were reasons not to declassify it, I certainly want to know about that.
All right.
All right, we'll come back to you on that point. Then all right, I think that's all I had for you on mine. So we'll return to you, Mr. Landsman, once you've had a chance to look into this declassification issue a little bit more. For now, let's go back to Ms. Porter just for a moment. I saw you appear on the screen for an instant there, Ms. Porter. Hello. So I think where I ended up with Mr. Landsman was I do want to see some kind of proposed condition of approval that says before you get your site work permit and your building permit issued, you have to have done the mine remediation work and prepared a final report documenting what you did. It sounds like he had something like that on his screen, and I thought, that does kind of make sense. But I think that should probably be incorporated into the hearing examiner's decision, don't you?
I agree. I think the only tweak that I would make would be, in order for the applicant to do that work, the city have to issue a site work permit. So I think a lot of the conditions that are in the SEPA decision are saying, you know, you have to provide these reports showing this work, and then we'll issue a site work permit for you to then conduct this work. And then, you know, ongoing information will need to be provided to the city. So
if I'm following correctly, they would apply for a site work permit to do, you know, this work. Once they'd done the work, then they would prepare a final geotech report. Once the final geotech report was prepared, then you'd be in a position to issue building permits, assuming that like no problems had been discovered. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Since you have to send me some stuff anyways with these old codes, why don't you take a crack at a new recommended condition? We'll call it condition 19, that basically spells that out kind of in plain English. And I'll take a look at it, and hopefully I'm trying not to call everyone back in. If I have questions about whatever you send me, I will call folks back in. But I'm hoping not to. So I think you understand my concern with this stuff. Right. And if you could write a condition that would address it, I would be grateful for that.
Yes.
All right. So do we you said that we had someone else going to come in on stormwater. Who was that now?
Yes, that is Stacy Rush.
All right, let's bring her on. Good morning, Ms. Rush. Will you, thank you. I was just going to say, take yourself off. Will you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth? Thank you so much. And I see the spelling of your name, Stacey, last name Rush. Is that spelling correct? Thank you, ma'am. And what is your role with the city?
I'm a senior development engineer in the community planning and development.
Okay. And Ms. Porter said that you're able to testify on stormwater. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my big question on stormwater was, when I look at their preliminary stormwater plan, which I think is exhibit, was it 20? It was. When I look at exhibit 20, it's using the 2014 manual. But as I read the Issaquah vesting code, stormwater manuals don't vest. So we've got to use today's version of the manual and, you know, Issaquah's modifications to that, which I think is 2021 is the most recent. So where do things stand with stormwater review?
For subdivisions are a little bit different than like a standard building permit for a commercial thing. For subdivisions, stormwater is designed at the subdivision level. You don't typically do stormwater at each individual house. You do one stormwater facility, one or two, but one stormwater facility for the entire subdivision. So that's why we kind of vest, and the stormwater is designed at the subdivision level. So when the building permits come in, they're not really going to change the stormwater design. So we wouldn't use a new manual for that separate building permit.
Oh, yes, I totally agree with you on that point. My question, though, is as I'm reviewing the stormwater plan here at the subdivision level, don't I need to make sure that the stormwater plan complies with the current manual, which I think is 2019? Isn't that a determination that I have to make?
No, because we didn't adopt. Let's see, let me go back to my notes so I get the dates right. The 2019, our current stormwater manual was adopted for use on complete subdivision submittals on or after July 1st, 2022. The preliminary permit for this project was submitted September 18th of 2020. So we had not adopted the 2019 manual yet.
Well, hold on. So I agree with you that you hadn't adopted the manual yet. And, certainly for most provisions of the land use code, this applicant would be vested to, whatever the code said back in those days. That's actually why I have Ms. Porter digging up all these old versions of the code so I can review them and make sure it's compliant. There is an exception to that, though, ma'am. I'll call it up. I'll try to call it back up on my screen again here. All right, so I think I should be sharing. This is the code IMC 18.390.020 exceptions. Stormwater regulations are not considered zoning and land use control ordinances for vesting purposes. Projects will be evaluated based on standards in place at the time of approval, not application. The time of approval for the Edwards Plat is now. So don't I have to evaluate this project based on the standards that are in place now?
I don't. That's interesting. That's Title 18 code, so that doesn't go by our stormwater code. That's Title 16.
Well, I know, but this is Title 18.
And what it says that we go by our NPDES.
Wait, you're going too fast, Ms. Rush. This is Chapter 18.390, subdivision phasing and vesting. So I think this is directly germane to the question of, what version of the code does this subdivision vest to? And I think the answer is pretty clear. We don't use the 2014 manual. We use the current manual. And I realize this is kind of a question for lawyers.
Yeah, I'm going based off what our city attorney advised us to go by. And so that's what I was told. And it's because our NPDES permit with ecology they can lose their vesting if they don't start construction by a certain date, but we're under NPDES permit, we're allowed to use the manuals that are in place at the time of the subdivision level, the preliminary plat.
Well, at the time of approval, which would be today, not the time of application. That's going to be the issue. Ms. Porter, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to jump in on this?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So you're referencing the current code, and I think you need to be referencing the old code vesting language, because this project is vested to the code at the time that it was completed.
Okay.
So I'm quickly trying to find that right now.
Because I can predict what the code said, even back in those days. I bet you the code said stormwater doesn't vest. I bet you that's what you're going to find.
Well, we'll see. And so the question is, you want to know what the project is vested to as far as stormwater, correct?
Correct. And I think I know the answer, which is it's vested to the it's vested to stormwater code and manual at time of decision, which would be right now.
No, I think our vesting in the old code said at the time of building or completeness of the project.
All right.
So
well,
I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send that on over, because maybe the vesting rule itself also vested. You get this kind of weird hierarchy. But I'm skeptical, Ms. Porter, because and the reason the code says this, by the way, is not anything that the Issaquah City Council sat down and decided on their own. This comes from state law. We have an appellate court decision that says stormwater doesn't vest. So I'd be very surprised if the code said something different, but we'll see. We'll see what it does say. Maybe we can wiggle out of this that way. But let's assume the worst here, folks. Let's assume that I'm supposed to determine whether this proposed subdivision complies with the 2019 manual. Ms. Rush, is there enough information in the record that I can figure that out one way or the other? Because it sounds like you probably did your review based on the. I did
my review based on the 2014 manual, because that was my understanding. Because our NPDES permit allows to go back. It allows to use previous storm manuals as long as the construction starts by a certain date. Like for this project, to use the 2014 ecology manual, they must start construction by July 1st of 2027. So all the reviews that I did of stormwater were based on that 2014 manual, not the 2019.
Okay. All right. Well, so here's
I
what
don't know if there's enough. I would say there's probably not enough information in there for you to look at the things of the 2019 manual.
I would say so too. So
Yeah.
here's something that we can do. Hopefully by the end of today, we can figure out whether we're all on the same page with regards to stormwater vesting. I think the most likely outcome of that will be we'll probably establish consensus. I'm expecting that we aren't vested to the 2014 stormwater manual and that we need to do some analysis under the 2019. If that's the case, we can hold the record open until that analysis is completed, however long that takes. That's one way we could go. It's probably the best way we could go, frankly. So we've got a lot riding on this whole question of vesting. I see some hands going up. No doubt other folks have some thoughts on this, which again, I am eager to hear. So for now, let's stop talking about stormwater. We can all do our research and try to figure out what the vesting rule was. And if it turns out bad news for the applicant, they didn't vest and nobody looked at this under the 2019 manual, then we can reconvene here at the end of the hearing and figure out what to do next. All right, Ms. Porter, were there any other city witnesses who wanted to jump in on any other issue? I see you shake your head. Oh, okay, sorry, I spoke over you there, but I think the answer is no. All right, please do look into that old code and try to come up with it, because I'd really like to resolve this today, one way or the other. All right, so with that, it's now time for the applicant team to come on and see if there's any other information they think that I should know. And maybe they're going to bring in some of their geotech reviewers. And yeah, I'm just very eager to hear what they have to say. So who's appearing on behalf of the applicant team this morning?
Hello, Mr. Examiner.
Good morning, Ms. Mahoney. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And I have the spelling of your name, K-I-M, last name M-A-H-O-N-E-Y. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Examiner.
All right. And you are appearing on behalf of the applicant, not the city today, right? Okay. What is your role with the applicant team?
I'm the principal planner with LDC, and we are one of the sub-consultants that's under contract to be able to represent the property owner. Okay, very good. All right, Ms. Mahoney, I had a lot of questions this morning. You can take them in whatever order you think would be best. Sure, thank you. My comments are very brief this morning, Mr. Examiner. There's been a lot of discussion of stormwater and vesting, and I will admit gladly on the record that I am not a stormwater engineer or expert. I am familiar with the vesting rights in the state of Washington that you described, and it would not surprise me to learn that the stormwater design is not vested to the code at the time of the application. But I have 2 points that I want to make. One is that maybe in this case it's different, and two is that if it's not, we're prepared to be able to work around that and redesign a stormwater management design for the site that will comply with the current standards. So to my first point, the code that you brought up a couple of times on your screen, Mr. Examiner, points to the exception to vesting in Issaquah, and it specifically states that that projects do not vest to Title 13, Chapter 28 in the Issaquah Municipal Code, but it's absent any discussion of the fact that projects do not vest to ecology manuals. Or manuals that are governed by the Department of Ecology related to stormwater. And so I wonder whether that has any relevance to the discussion on vesting today.
I don't think it does, Ms. Mahoney, because I took a look at 1328 when I was getting ready for this hearing, and 1328 itself says, for example, Stormwater Design Manual means the Department of Ecology 2019 Stormwater Management Manual. So if today's version of 1328 applies, well, today's version of 1328 says to use the 2019 manual. So that's how we end up.
Okay, and I wondered if something like that might be in there. I just haven't had an opportunity this morning to dive deeply enough into it, but it seems you
it's
have.
fine. I've ambushed everybody with my crazy vesting question, but I think it's a good one.
Sure, and you know, by large, again, I will say I'm very familiar with vested rights in the state of Washington. I understand the case law, and I understand that by large the rule is that stormwater does not vest.
Right.
And so to that end, I would just suggest that, you know, there's a number of instances we were talking about recourse, what the potential solution is in this instance if we decide that vesting does not apply to the stormwater design. And I would suggest rather than trying to be able to sort out whether the design presently is consistent with the 2019 stormwater manual issued by the Department of Ecology, I think that a more appropriate solution, and one that the applicant team would be happy to adhere to with staff, would be for a condition of approval to be written into the hearing examiner's decision that addresses that the stormwater design, if determined to be you know, non-compliant with the 2019 ecology standards, would be revised and reviewed by staff to ensure that the revised stormwater design is compliant with the relevant manual and codes in place at the time, which of course would be the time of the decision, not the time of the application. This has been
let me just take a look here, because I don't want to outsource my job to city staff. So let me take a look at the approval criteria for preliminary plats. Because I think one of the findings I have to make is that appropriate, you know, provisions are made for stormwater. I believe that's, and if that's not in the local code, then it's a requirement of state law, anyways.
I understand that requirement, Mr. Examiner. I will say that you know, the staff report has been prepared, and I think that Mr. Oh gosh, I'm with Sam, the engineer, Landsman, spoke to this quite eloquently. Is that the city has gone about an effort in the decision or in the staff report today to try and find a way that is both reasonable and accommodating to the length of time this preliminary plat has been under review with the city of Issaquah. And so to that end, there are a number of conditions that are recommended by staff in the hearing examiner staff report that say something to the effect of, you know, this will be something that is reviewed by staff at the time of the site development permit application, the building permit application, even as much as all of the, you know, specifics related to the geotechnical analysis and the findings of a geotechnical report related to the mines.
Well, I certainly agree with you that there are some issues that are appropriate to defer to a later permitting stage. You know, a preliminary plat is not a building permit, and the issues are different. However, when it comes to stormwater, because stormwater can sometimes require tracts of various sizes to be set aside, I do think that the stormwater issue implicates the plat to a greater extent than some of these other issues that we've been talking about. So I'll tell you what I'm thinking about is, you know, assuming we arrive at where I think we're going to arrive with regards to vesting, which is the thing doesn't vest, you need to use the 2019 manual. What if the applicant submitted a revised stormwater plan, you know, a revised version of Exhibit 20 using the 2019 manual, and then we had Ms. Rush or whoever the city's reviewer is, you know, look that over and provide a short addendum to the staff report, either giving it the thumbs up or the thumbs down, if any changes were necessary to the site plan to accommodate, say, like a larger infiltration facility or whatever, you know, those would also be submitted. And then I could take a look at all that, you know, the revised drainage report, revised site plans if necessary, and Ms. Rush's review, and then satisfy myself that adequate provision had been made for stormwater. What if we did it that way?
Well, certainly we would adhere with that if that were the move forward. On behalf of the applicant, all that does, quite frankly, is add more time before a decision is issued on the preliminary plat, which has already been under review for nearly 4 years. And that just is something that if there is a creative way for us to be able to provide assurance in the comfort of the hearing examiner's decision while still being able to receive a decision on the matter today without waiting for additional staff review time would certainly be our preference to be able to work out some sort of solution in that manner. I feel compelled to push against the idea that the stormwater design would be revised to such a degree that it would have an extreme impact on the layout of the site. There are many other things in the staff report, that have been suggested as being conditioned for the hearing examiner's decision to be reviewed at a later date, even to include the amount of impervious coverage that's going to apply to the site, which I think that, and a reasonable argument could be made that that could have various impacts in the eventual design of what the site is going to look like. But there's comfort that is taken in the iterative and following site development review processes that ensures that nothing inappropriate is going to relate from any changes that result in staff's review.
Well, the problem I have with that is, some of the potential changes that might have to happen shift the risk onto you. For example, if the mine turns out to be farther south, then, lots 2 through 6 can't be built, for example. You'd have the platted lot, but you couldn't build anything there. But as we heard from Ms. Rush's testimony, stormwater is a little different because stormwater affects the entire plat. It's not like there's a separate stormwater plan for each one of these lots. So, I do think we need to make sure that we have an adequate stormwater tract. I don't know whether that will be the case or not. It may be, it may not be. As I'm sure you're aware, the 2019 manual is a lot more stringent than the 2014 manual was, and I don't know what the outcome of the new review will be.
Still, Mr. Examiner, sounds like something that eventually is to say that it is the risk of the applicant to take that on.
Well, so I guess what would happen then is if, let's say I wrote a condition in here that said, make sure you're compliant with the 2019 stormwater manual. And then it turned out the 2019 stormwater manual required, tract 999 to be twice as large or whatever. Well, no, it still wouldn't work. It still wouldn't work because, you're not allowed to redraw the plat map to make it larger. You'd have to do like a plat revision or something like that.
But to that point, Mr. Examiner, the same result would yield if we learned through the geotechnical analysis that lots 6 through 8 couldn't be developed. We would still have to redesign the plat, and that would have to undergo a plat revision process.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily have to redesign the plat. You could just not build on those lots. Whereas if your tract 999 is not going to work for your stormwater, I mean, then frankly, the whole plat kind of falls apart. All right. Ms. Porter, you look like you have something you want to add to this discussion. Oops, I can't hear you, ma'am.
Sorry. We understand that vesting for stormwater is a big issue, and so we are asking if we can have a short recess to consult with our city attorney on this matter, get her up to speed, and perhaps she can speak on this.
Yes, I think that would be productive. I'm sure Ms. Mahoney has other issues she wants to weigh in on, but let's take the break now. We've been going for an hour and a half anyways. We'll take a break. How long do you want, Ms. Porter?
15 minutes.
All right, let's reconvene at 10:45, everybody.
Great, thank you. I have a request. Should we wait?
We should officially. Yeah, all right. We're official. We got the thumbs up. Yes, Ms. Porter.
So staff is currently consulting with the city attorney, and we would request that we have a few more minutes. Is it possible to move on to some other questions, and then our city attorney can hop on and speak to stormwater vesting?
Excellent. Yes, let's do that. So we were just doing the testimony of Ms. Mahoney. Ms. Mahoney, can you put yourself back on here? There you are. All right. So we'll come back to stormwater once we've heard from our city attorney. Ms. Mahoney, did you have any other issues that you wanted to testify about?
No other issues, Mr. Examiner. I can wait until the city attorney is able to weigh in on the stormwater matter.
Nothing on mine declassification, anything like that?
I certainly am not the person on our team to speak to that, and we are trying to be able to find somebody on our team who can speak to that and hopefully are able to do so.
Okay, so do you have anyone else on your team who wishes to testify on any issue?
Well, I don't know. Lance or Chad, if you want to be able to speak to any of the matters discussed so far or contribute anything, now's the time to be able to come off mute.
All right, so I see someone is just activating himself.
Hello,
Username here is Chad W. Sir, can you hear me okay?
Go ahead. We're in the middle of the hearing.
It doesn't look like Mr. Chad is prepared to testify at this time.
Yeah, but
Oh,
hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chad, will you good morning, sir. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
And can you state and spell your full name for the audio record, please?
Chad, C-H-A-D, Woods, W-O-O-D-S.
All right, Mr. Woods, what is your role with the project?
I've been the representing project manager employment of Jim Edwards, the property owner.
All right.
And have been involved from the beginning of this. Right now, I'm trying to get a hold of an engineer supposed to call me back from Issaquah. Our primary individual will be doing the planning or the remediation work on this is Christopher Breed with Subterra, and he's out of country until next week on another project. But Subterra is a worldwide company that does engineering and advisement on mine issues. So I'm confident he'll come up with a good plan. But our goal here is to move forward and get working on the remediation work, get the plan out, be able to get the weather seasonal windows to proceed with actually taking care of any issues that are discovered, because the owner's desire is to get this project forward in part so that we can restore the whole area. We're willing to work with the city in any conditions that they give us, and we realize that we have the whole risk here. We are not expecting the risk to be shared with anyone else other than the property owner.
Do you agree, Mr. Woods, that it's incumbent on you to complete the remediation work and then do a final report, and only then do you get your building permits to actually build, the development portion of the project?
Oh, yes. No, we want to proceed with the remediation, but we also need, because of the great expense to getting this property ready for development, that we have some assurance that if we take care of the problems, we can proceed to the next phase. But no, we had no expectation of going any farther with the project until all the mine void issues and any surface water issues have been addressed and taken care of, actually physically passed inspection from the city. At that point, then we would be applying to move forward on doing actually the street, the utilities, all the other parts that go into a subdivision like this. And we purposely moved from the beginning that we not develop it off of the Francis Lane Road, but put our own road in so that we could push the potential building sites as far away from any of the mitigation areas we could.
All right. Have you had a chance to review the staff report and the city staff's proposed conditions of approval?
Yes.
Do you have any questions or objections about any of them?
No, we don't.
All right. Ms. Porter is working on another proposed condition, which basically says, or I hope will say, what you just testified right now, which is, the order of operations is you do the remediation work first, you do a final report, it gets signed off on, and only then do you get your building permits. I take it you have no objection to a condition that says something like that.
No, we don't. We don't plan to move forward until the work is actually completed and been approved.
All right. I recognize that we are waiting on our city attorney to weigh in on the vesting issue, but let's say the vesting issue doesn't break your way, sir. Let's say everyone agrees that this project was supposed to have been reviewed under the 2019 version of the Stormwater Manual, not the 2014 version. What should I do in that case?
Well, if we would not plan to oppose any way that we not meet the new criteria. I would expect that we may have to redraw the plat lines and even give up some of the lots to accomplish that. Of course, we'd like as many lots as we could, just for the financial reasons. But that area that's down below there at the bottom where the retention is, we could give up a lot if we needed to, and we look at that area as being open space since it's going to be a covered retention. So whatever ends up being requirements, we plan on complying with that.
All right, that all makes sense, sir. Well, I sure would like to hear from the mine remediation folks. Do you have anything further for me?
No, I don't. The mine remediation, I'm trying to get somebody from Issaquah to come on. I'm waiting for a phone call right now. And
right.
Again, the Subterra is not available until next week. So
understood.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to hear from Subterra, just because, it's interesting to hear, especially for members of the public, because I know we've got some neighbors listening, to hear just, physically what is entailed in remediating a coal mine. But the main ones I want to hear from are Issaquah, because they're the ones who've, flagged this issue of, we don't necessarily know where the boundaries of mine number 4 are. They're the ones who said we can safely declassify mine number 1. So I would be, very eager to hear from them. Let's do this, Mr. Woods. Why don't you keep trying to get them on the phone? Just in the interest of having an efficient hearing, I'll take testimony from any other member of your team that's here already. If no one else is, then we'll throw it open to members of the public so I can hear their testimony as well. Does that work, Mr. Woods?
Yes, that works fine. I'll continue trying to get a hold of somebody.
Very good. And you have anyone else ready to go right now? Doesn't look like it.
Not that I know of. I've deferred to our two others on this. I just was listening in. Okay, and I appreciate all that you're doing on this.
Well, and thank you. I appreciate you jumping in, sir. I realize I'm asking hard questions, but we do a thorough.
Yeah, and I have talked to the Subterra and know what we're anticipating on doing and how the mitigation is hopefully moving forward. But that I'd only give that information if requested.
Well, why don't you give me the broad overstrokes, because
the area that
you're a part of this neighborhood, and it may be of benefit to your neighbors to hear generally what the plan is.
Well, the plan is that on the area that parallels the Mine Hill Road, is that's going to be a surface remediation project, meaning that we'll have to take the overburden off and get down to where the mine entrances are, and do whatever geotech work that needs to be done to take care of that part. On the deeper areas where mine voids have been detected through a core drilling process, my understanding is that we would inject some kind of cementation dam at the downhill part of that void, and then grout it from that point on. I also believe that there is some wire mesh and other physical barriers or retention that would be buried in there to help stabilize the soils. As far as the deeper tunnel and the declassification, the tunnels that may be down there are so deep that they aren't considered a hazard anymore. If there just won't be sinkholes there. But we're wanting to address any issue encountered during the further exploration or work on this. But the first thing that we're going to have to do is get some of the fill off of the lower end of that project where the shafts are shallower, and actually open them up and mitigate back in and fill, compact the soil. So anyway, that's basically what I've been told would be the process. And Icicle will have to do some further core sampling as we go along, but right now we just want to know that it's going to be financially feasible to go ahead and fix all the issues.
Understood. All right. Well, thank you so much, sir. If you can get a hold of Issaquah, I sure would appreciate hearing from them. You can jump back on at any point. But for now, let's turn it over to members of the public. Before we do, Ms. Bear, I saw a thing pop up on my screen. You have 5 minutes left in your meeting. Are we about to get kicked off the software here?
No, we are not going to be able to be kicked off. It's the actual meeting request that was sent out via Outlook that you have to like actually pick a time frame. It doesn't. You have to end. It has a tentative ending. We can keep rolling and rolling and rolling. I have room reserved the rest of the day.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's keep rolling and rolling then. We'll do a public testimony. Did anyone from the public come down in person to the city? Because folks that come in person, I like to get them done first because they've given up more of their day to be here with us.
There was, and now there's just one left. I think everything else has been completed, but yes, there's one member of the public here that you can reach out to.
Well, folks, I'm sorry it took so long. I drove people away by taking too long, but I do appreciate those that have stuck with us. And let's swear in that member of the public, please.
Do you want me to just sit here? You can talk right from right there.
I can't actually see this person. Is there a way to get them on camera?
Come up. Here I am.
Okay, now I can see somebody taking a seat there.
Hi, Mr. Examiner. My name is Denise. It's Denise Batura, B as in boy, Atura, and I live on Gibson Lane.
Ma'am, can you spell that? Wait. Can you spell that last name again, please?
It's B as in boy, Atura.
All right, Ms. Batura, will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right, what would you like me to know?
My concerns for the building are in the area that you have been talking about, which I appreciate how detailed you are because you have been asking a lot of the questions that are concerns are the stormwater and the mines, because the concern for me are the mines don't just sit on that 4-acre parcel. The whole hillside is considered, it's an old mine hill. So I feel like some of those shafts are going under other of our homes that are already there. And just, so that's a concern that we're focusing on the 4 acres when it could impact a lot of the neighbors around the area. And also Francis Lane is a private road that is right next to this parcel that I'm not sure how they have managed their stormwater because it is a private road. Because Gibson Lane, the road that I live on, that's the next road over, they did redo our stormwater and it's a concrete road, and Francis Lane is not. It's like a gravel road with, I don't know what their stormwater has done. And my other concern that to mention is there have been sinkholes, not in that area, but on the hillside of Squawk Mountain or Old Mine Hill. And right now I know like maybe 3 blocks up there, Puget Sound Energy is fixing there's a big sinkhole from stormwater. So there's just some issues on our hillside because it is older and they are wanting to do a pretty big project with putting in a lot of homes. That I feel like all these things should be addressed because I just am concerned all the houses are surrounding it are a lot older.
Is there anything specific that you would like me to do in my capacity as hearing examiner?
No, I think what you have asked are the questions about the stormwater is perfect. Other thing, I do actually have a question about Old Mine Hill. That actual road is a small road. And concerned about what they're talking about, parallel parking and such. If a car parks on that road, it's just ends up being 1 lane. You can't have 2 cars passing. So I'm just concerned about how they're going to, what the process is for that. What does that look like?
So here's what I'll do for you, Ms. Batura. Neither the city nor the applicant are required to answer your questions, but they are good questions, and it may be in their best interest to answer them. So after we get through all of the public testimony, I'll throw it over to the city and the applicant team. They may, if they so choose, answer some of these questions and concerns that you have brought up.
Great.
Anything further, Batura?
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, very good. I think that was our only witness in the room. We drove everyone else away with our talk of stormwater vesting. All right, we'll turn it over to the folks on the Zoom now, or I guess on the Microsoft Teams. Who would like to testify next? All right, I see Gina Donlin has activated a camera, and since she was the first one to do it, she's the first one who gets to testify. Ma'am, will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And the spelling of your name I see on my screen, Gina, last name Donlin, is that correct?
Yes, my full name is Regina, Regina, if it matters.
All right, I have noted that, and I will identify you as such when I summarize public testimony in my decision. All right, Ms. Donlin, what would you like us to know?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Seidels. I wanted to see if I could share my window here. Try this here.
If you have documents that we haven't seen before, I would ask you to send them to Ms. Baer as proposed exhibits, but if you're just going to show something that's already in the record, then you don't have to do that. So what are you about to throw up here?
Can you see my screen with the geotechnical report that's part of the project?
I cannot.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's not letting me. All right. I will
pull it up on my own screen, or maybe you need some permissions or something. Can we make sure Ms. Donlin has whatever permissions are necessary for screen sharing?
Sure. It's part of, I can put it in the file name into the chat. It's part of the project documents, so everyone does have access to this.
All right. As I say, the chat is not part of the record, but we can use it for these administrative tasks, like what is the name of the thing here. All right. So it looks like PP20-000_2R Geotechnical Report 2021, TAC 10, TAC 21. Let me see if I can figure out an exhibit number for that.
Okay. It's the Icicle Creek Engineers coal mine hazard map. It's figure 4 in here.
All right. So the Icicle report that I've been relying on is exhibit 20, but my Icicle report has a date of updated cover November 2023. Is that what it says on the first page of whatever you're referring to?
It's showing the 2021 version. It's a map of the Edward South parcel and my home right above it.
Hold on. But before we get into your testimony here, I want to make sure that we're literally on the same page. Does anyone know the exhibit number that Ms. Donlin is referring to? Can somebody? You don't have to be under oath. Just yell out the exhibit number.
Yes, it's exhibit 17, the geotech report, and I believe it's page 21. Just to clarify, Ms. Donlin, is it the exhibit that shows like the green and the orange? And, okay, yes,
yeah,
figure 4 is page 21.
Page 19 of 77.
For ease, I can share my screen.
Yes, Ms. Porter, thank goodness. Yes, I think I'm on the same one because you gave me that exhibit number, but let's just have you share the screen, and that way we can know once and for all what we're talking about. And if you could call out the exhibit number and page number once you have it up, Ms. Porter, because the record of this case is the audio record, not the video. Sorry about this, Ms. Donlin, but it is important to me that we kind of accurately track what we're doing here. All right. Oh, so that is different from what I was looking at. Where are you at, Ms. Porter?
Exhibit number 17, and it's page 21 in the geotech report, so it's figure 9.
Yeah, so my exhibit 17, because now I'm like alarmed about the record here. My exhibit 17 is Icicle Creek Engineers Revised Report, Geological Engineering Services, date April 10, 2023. Do I have the correct Oh, so this is Exhibit 17, and you said page 21 of it?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're in the PDF, page 21, not the page 21 on the report.
Oh, so yes, I am in the PDF. Can you give me a PDF page number?
Yeah, so it's PDF. So if you go to the top, did you see here? I went to the top and put in page 21 and it jumped to figure 4.
All right, so I am on figure 4. I see the problem here. So my figure 4 doesn't have the highlighting. That's very odd.
There's a couple of different figures. So
I'm definitely on PDF 21, figure 4. It is this map with the, the key that says what the colors mean. The only difference is I've got these contour lines and there's no green area, there's no orange area. Let me try opening it with a different piece of software here, because sometimes what folks will do with these PDFs is they'll do some like weird formatting thing where the PDF, it's not what you see is what you get if you hit print. There's like weird overlays. So give me 1 second here. And again, I apologize to Ms. Donlin here. This isn't coming out of your time, Ms. Donlin. I'm not setting time limits on anybody today.
That's okay. I appreciate you making sure we're all in the same page.
So now I've opened it with a different application. I'm trying to go to page 21. Aha. All right. Yes. Now my page 21 has all the filled in stuff. It apparently matters which program I open the PDF in. So I am now on the same page as everybody. We are in Exhibit 17, PDF 21, which is the caption of that is figure 4. Thank you, everybody. And I apologize again. Ms. Donlin, go ahead with your testimony, please.
So I haven't been able to follow very well, like which mine, and because there's several different declassification areas, it sounds like we're referring to through the course of this conversation. My home is located, I think, approximately where the number 180 is on the Donlin parcel.
All right, let's see, 180. So you're, if I'm reading this correctly, 180 is actually, that's owned by the developer here. I don't think that this is like a vicinity map. I think this is just a map of their own property.
It does say Donlin parcel, which is my last name.
It does say that. Yeah, all right. No, I see the property line there. I'm the one who's reading it wrong. Okay, so I've got you now.
And so I just want to make sure I'm tracking correctly. Like there's going to be a road built on the south of my property line. And I just want to make sure that this process is, while that piece of land is outside the scope of this work, but that there's no safety concerns with that remediation work being, extending into where it could be damaging to my property.
So your home is actually in the crosshatched area that is labeled on this map, severe coal mine hazard area, parentheses, higher risk, no development. Cleared open space is okay. That's where your house is?
I believe it got built when the mines were built. And so they didn't worry about it back then, but
I can see why you'd be concerned today though.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that while this is outside of the Edwards parcel, that any remediation work is taking that into consideration, and any risks or with this remediation work are taking into account keeping my property safe.
What would you like to see me do as hearing examiner, Ms. Donlin?
I would like you to maybe review some of those documents to make sure that there's no concerns. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm just a humble lawyer. I mean, I can barely get the PDF to display, so I'm certainly not going to be able to personally review this for structural safety. But that's why we have a process in place, with third-party review that the city has done.
Could we ask if the third-party review takes into account existing structures within that zone?
I think what I will do for you, Ms. Donlin, is we will, when we get through public testimony, call back the city and applicant teams, and I will ask them what review, if any, have the third-party reviewers who are engineers, who do understand this stuff, what have they done to make sure that not only the subject property, but also the neighboring properties are structurally safe? Because I don't know the answer to your question, and I do think it's an important question.
Okay. And I'd like to just put the question on the record from Tony from earlier of, like, you know, who's accountable for those geotech determinations, and will those insurance companies underwrite the risks associated with the mine hazards? I'm not an expert here, but I just want to make sure that if any negative things are happening with my property with this, that I'm protected somehow.
Very well. As I said with Ms. Batura, the city and applicant are not required to answer your questions, but they may wish to. They are required to answer my questions, and as I said, I'm going to ask them about this house safety stuff. Further questions about, you know, insurance and financial liability, I'll leave it up to them whether they wish to answer those questions or not. Do you have anything further for me, Ms. Donlin?
Not today, thank you.
All right, thank you. Can you please take down your, oh, you're not the one doing it. It's Ms. Porter who's screen sharing. Can we take down the screen share, please, Ms. Porter? Thanks. And sorry again, it took me so much time to get the thing to display. It's just so weird. All right, let's go on to our next witness. And I see we have an individual, Tony Pittich, if I'm saying that last name correctly. Sir, can you turn on your microphone, please? Did I say your name?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Did I say your name correctly?
No, but that's okay. It was a good try. It's Pidick.
Pidick. All right, Mr. Pidick, will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
And the spelling of your name, Tony, last name Pydych, is that spelling correct?
Yes.
All right, sir. What would you like me to know?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and your attention to detail is appreciated. I think I've been on Mine Hill Road now for 25 years with my wife, raised my kids here, so I've been here for a long time. We live 2 houses down, just next to Gina's house to the north. And know Jim well, the owner. The design is cool. I mean, it's great to see some new development. I think everyone on Mine Hill Road is aware of the mine hazards issue because we live with it every day. So there's a lot of concern about that. It does impact us because we live here. And so there needs to be special attention paid to the seismic, you know, the geotechnical hazards associated with the coal mines. And so I do appreciate your rigor on that. I do believe that I'm an architect, so I have I have maybe a lot more understanding of the process than maybe a normal citizen might. But I'm not an expert either. But I do think that on this particular site, it would be really important to make sure that on the site plan and the survey that the coal mines that are known are documented in their location. There's some really good data on it available. The city has a long history of this with Icicle Creek. And I do think that it is a little scary for people who live here to think about digging up and excavating and, you know, drilling and all the stuff and all the traffic on the road. There's just a lot of concern about the character of the community and the quality of life on Mine Hill Road. And certainly this particular project would impact that significantly. The traffic's a big concern. The street can't be widened. I know Valerie talked about this earlier because the way the properties are defined, unless there's some eminent domain or something like that, there's no way to put a curb and gutter in, which would be normal for a development like this. There would be a requirement to put curb and gutter in, and there would be a requirement to potentially upgrade the entire street, the overlay and all that. So it's a really difficult site. And I applaud the design team for taking advantage of the zoning, defining the site. I just think we have concerns, you know, as it's because we live here. And the other thing is on the stormwater side. Thank you for pointing out the specifics of that in terms of the requirements to follow the current stormwater. You know, everyone has to play by the same rules around here, so the developer of the site needs to do the same thing. And I think that the stormwater in particular is important for the environment. I don't know whether the capacity of the stormwater system in the street has been determined and whether there's enough capacity for this development of this density to just discharge right into the stormwater system. That's a question. And you know, there's a lot of activity on the hill here where we live, water, you know, stormwater activity that drains into the Issaquah Creek. If you walk along the creek down below us here, there's a lot of water that comes out of the hill from under the road, from under Wildwood, and it comes gurgling up and discharges into the creek. We're at the bottom of the mountain. So I know the stormwater is a really important part of the project, and it's a really important part of the environment. So a lot of attention to be paid on that is appreciated. With the density of the development, the number of units, the impervious area.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We just lost Mr. Pidek. He went away for you guys too, huh?
Yeah.
And he left the chat. Not that we're using the chat for anything official. Yeah, it looks like his computer may have just crashed. So what we'll do is, if and when he comes back on, we'll put him back on. But for the meantime, is there any other member of the public who wishes to testify? Oh, here he comes.
Apologies. I don't know what happened. I'm pretty much done. I just appreciate the time and the attention, Alex, to the project. And again, I don't know that we're opposed to the project, but we just want to make really sure that the character of the lane, the quality of life that we have here, the environmental issues, the animals that come through here that make it special, the stormwater, and the geotech, man, is a wild card. It's really uncertain how that's going to go down. And I know there's a long history in the city with problems along the hill here with sinkholes, and it just makes everyone a little nervous. And I think especially those of us who are right on top of the shafts that go down, like my house and Gina's house, and certainly these houses would be right there on top of the subsided shafts. So it's a big challenge for the development team. I appreciate your attention to it, Alex. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Do we have any other? Yes, someone else has just activated a microphone. Good morning, ma'am. Will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And I see the spelling of your name on my screen is Julia, last name Cooke. Is that spelling correct?
It is correct.
All right, Ms. Cook, what is your testimony?
I also live in the area just on Gibson Lane. In the back of our yard is the end of a mine shaft and a creek. And so our concern is just that the remediation and the work that's being done there would ultimately impact our property. Some of the information that came out, and I wish I had kept that, was that they didn't know where those mine shafts were. And others have said, well, they kind of maybe do. We'd love to be reassured that they actually do know where the mine shafts are and how that's going to impact the properties around them.
All right. Anything further, Ms. Cook?
Just the same concerns that all of the property owners in the same area have. So.
All right. Very good. Thank you for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in the room or on the computer who wishes to testify? Any other members of the public? If you wish to testify, you have to take some kind of action to let me know that you want that. There's a raise hand button, which I see Ms. Donlin has her hand raised, but Ms. Donlin, members of the public only get a single chance to testify, as I mentioned during my opening remarks. Any other members of the public wishing to testify, turn on your microphone, raise your hand, do something to let me know that you wish to speak. Otherwise, I will assume that you do not wish to speak. This is true for folks that have come in by phone too. Not seeing any other members of the public. Oh, all right. Very good. So I think what we'll do now is let's turn back to the city team and see where we're at with city attorney. Also give the city team a chance to respond to any of the comments and questions that we heard from members of the public. And then I have a question for the city team as well. Once we've heard from the city team, we'll save the last word for the applicant team. So hopefully Ms. Porter is still with us. All right.
I'm here.
Where do things stand with the city team?
I'm trying to get an update on this city attorney right now, but in the meantime, I can address some of the issues that were brought up, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. One of the issues that was mentioned was Mine Hill Road, and again, the character and the narrowness of the road. So just to speak on that, the applicant is proposing to provide dedication, so some of the land will be turned into right-of-way to allow for the widening of Mine Hill Road. it will allow for two-way traffic and on-street parking. As one of the members of public stated, Mine Hill Road does have its own unique character. So as part of the deviation that the applicant requested to the city was to allow for no curb, sidewalk and things like that. But because the road is widened, it will allow for pedestrians to walk on the road with basically not in the travel lanes, but on off to the side. So that will
Well, I guess I'm a little bit confused, Ms. Porter, because I have open Exhibit 23, which is the deviation request for Mine Hill Road. It says this deviation proposes frontage improvements along Mine Hill Road Southwest that includes 8 feet of right-of-way dedication, a curb and gutter system. But I thought I just heard you say that there wouldn't be a curb. So now I'm confused.
I don't believe there's curb and gutter on Mine Hill, but there will be on Road A.
No,
So
this definitely said, this is Exhibit 23 that I'm in, deviation to street standards, Mine Hill Road. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what I'm supposed to be looking at here.
nope, hold on, let me get.
Because there was a deviation for Road A, but I don't think that's what I'm on right now.
Okay, well then let me double check and look at the section, but it's my understanding that there would be no curb and gutter, but I'll double check that. But
Okay.
nonetheless, the road will be widened to allow for two-way traffic and on-street parking.
All right.
Someone did mention Francis Lane, which is the current road that the parcel currently gets primary access from. As the applicant said previously, access will no longer be on Francis Lane. It will be from Road A. So, and that road will be a paved road. Again, a street standard was requested for this to not allow for a full road. So that's two-way traffic, curb, sidewalk, gutter on both sides. Due to the location of the coal mine hazard area, the applicant has requested not to build sidewalk, curb, and gutter on both sides of the street. So we're trying to limit the impacts to the critical areas.
Okay.
The other part is the remediation work.
Yes, and that's one where I had a question too. And specifically, I was a little bit alarmed by Ms. Donlan's testimony where she showed us where her house is right smack in the middle of the most severe mine hazard. And then as we'd mentioned earlier this morning, there was some talk in the Issaquah report that dewatering the upgradient mine works could cause hydrogeologic changes, which could be detrimental. That made me worry that even as you try to fix one part of the mine system, potentially you cause problems somewhere else. So what kind of review has been done of potential risks to surrounding properties?
So the remediation work was prepared by a licensed engineer, and that report then was double peer reviewed by licensed engineers. The city doesn't have that expertise, which is why we consult out to third party. And then, like I said earlier, it's our procedure to then get it double peer reviewed. So we're relying on the licensed engineers to review this. Again, I understand that there's some concerns. And so, again, we don't issue any permits for an applicant to proceed unless they can confirm that there is no impacts to adjacent parcels or there's any life safety issues. So,
but wait a minute. I thought that the next permit issuance will be after the remediation work is complete. No, I'm wrong about that. The next permit issuance will be site work to perform the mitigation, won't it?
Right. So in order for us to issue that permit, the applicant needs to provide the necessary documentation showing that they can do whatever work without causing any issues.
But why shouldn't I look at that right now? Why are we always deferring? Why can't I see that now?
At this stage, the project is for feasibility to understand if they can do this work and that it doesn't have a problem. And we believe that the project is feasible. But again, we wouldn't allow for any construction unless the applicant can provide that, again, detailed work saying these are the steps that we're actually going to take to ensure that these things do not occur. Again, if you feel that you would like this information a little bit sooner, we can require that this work occur before any permits happen before the final plat occurs.
Yeah, so I already have you drafting a proposed condition that basically says, do the remediation before you build out the subdivision. Maybe throw in another one that essentially says what you just told me, which is prior to doing the site work approval to perform the remediation, we're going to do a specific geotech review of that work. Because right now, as you say, it's all just feasibility. But I really want to make sure that as we go and fix up the property for our applicant, we don't cave in Miss Donlan's house. And I trust you that nobody would ever do something like that. I want to see it. I want to see it in writing as part of this plat, because none of this would be happening if it wasn't for the plat. So I think there does have to be some kind of accountability, some kind of tie-in between the plat approval and the remediation work that they are trying to do.
Yes, so that is part of the critical area code, but a specific condition addressing that is totally fine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the reason I want to tie it back to the plat is, I want to make it very clear that, if they can't safely do this remediation work, then they don't get the plat at all. That's why I want to put it here. And again, it's not that I don't trust folks to do the right thing. And even if the site work was a standalone thing, not tied to the plat, I'm sure they would do a really good job. But all of this stuff is linked in my mind, so I want to see it linked through the permit conditions as well.
And just for clarification, are you saying that if they can't provide this, that they don't get final plat?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Before this goes to final plat, I would want to see, that they have, a site work plan that's been reviewed by a geotech and is not going to cause damage not only to this property but to the neighboring properties.
That works. I just like to be detailed about when things happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, again, and it's not that I think people aren't going to do this work, but the sequencing is important to me, and I want to make it very clear that we're not just generating report after report after report. We're checking things before we do the work. We're not doing the work and then checking things.
Right. Understand. Right. I will draft something for the hearing examiner to review.
And I don't know what it looks like. I'm the one who writes the decisions. I can, write whatever conditions I want, but you're the planning expert. So the conditions that you've drafted, the 18 that you have in there are good. And if you can do more good work on these other conditions, then I'll simply be able to rely on your good work instead of having to do my own. So
definitely. Okay.
But I have a lot of confidence in you, Ms. Porter. That's why I'm putting this on your desk instead of simply, grabbing my red pen and writing in what I think, should go there. I trust you to do a good job with this. All right, let's see what else. What else did you have that we heard from the public here?
I think there was a little bit of a question regarding the location of Road A. So the road isn't going to be on the Donlands parcel. It is going to be exclusively on the Edwards Plat parcel. And it is actually going to be a ways away from the property line, because again, there are critical areas that sit on that property line. So I just wanted to be very clear that it's all on the Edwards Plat, and it's not in a coal mine hazard. Well, a portion of it will be, again, because the work will be remediated.
Okay.
And then I think there was again questions about stormwater. So I believe our attorney and Stacy have returned, and so they can probably speak to vesting and stormwater.
All right. Well, I thought we were going to get a lunch break, but I would much rather talk about stormwater vesting than eat lunch. So if they are available to testify, let's put them on now. All right. Who have we got here? This looks like the city attorney. Good morning,
Yes. Good morning. Kim Adams Pratt for the city.
Are you testifying as a witness or?
No.
I don't think you are. All right. Well, let me, I'll just take a note that you're here. We'll call you something other than a witness. And I take it you've been briefed by the city team on what our issue is with the stormwater vesting?
I have, and thank you for providing us time for a continuance so that I could talk to Valerie as well. What I have is the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, their NPDES permit for they are in phase 2 of the municipal stormwater permits. And I have that here. I don't know, Your Honor, I think it might be helpful if I share that as screen and we maybe make this an exhibit. Does that work? Would that be okay?
It will, but just so you're aware, the stormwater system that's being contemplated here is for on-site infiltration, not for connection to the municipal stormwater system. So I'm not sure what the relevance would be of the city's, MS4 NIPD's permit.
I think that this permit is going to apply to stormwater throughout the city. Because they, any discharge in the city could affect their system. And so we apply this manual to all of the discharge in the city.
All right, well, let's take a look.
And Your Honor, I apologize, and I think I'm getting up to speed on this very quickly. But if at the end we, happy to provide you with additional information, short, update on the staff report or whatever you think is needed for that.
Okay. Oh, and someone else just signed it. This is the presentation of our city attorney, Mr. Schwartz. So I'm not quite sure what's going on here.
Yeah, this is actually, can you hear me?
Yes, but it's supposed to be the city attorney talking. What is there some emergency going on here?
No, it's not the attorney. This is Brian Beeman, actually, because Jeff wasn't here, but we're the geotechnical engineers that did the coal mine studies.
Okay. Let me pause you here, Mr. Schwartz. I do want to hear from you, and we will circle back, but let's hear from our city attorney first.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm hoping you can see my screen, Mr. Examiner.
Yes, Western Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater.
Okay. And this is on PDF page 26.
Did you say 46?
26.
26, all right. And we'll make this an exhibit too, so you can have Ms. Bear send it out. I think we're up to exhibit 42, I think is what we'll call it. All right, so page 26. All right, I've got you.
Page 26. So this is section S as in Sam, 5, C as in cat, 6, and we're looking at subsection A, triple I. So this is why we're saying the 2014 manual applies here. And that's because of this section, city had to adopt their program, and it applies to all applications that fall under any of these 3 criteria. And the third one here, so this would be the 2019 manual would apply if they submitted their application prior to July 1st of 2022 and have not started construction by July 1st of 2027. My understanding.
Wait, I think you may have misspoke, Ms. Pratt. You said the 2019 manual would apply. Did you mean the 2014 manual?
If they don't start construction by July 1st of 2027, the 2019 manual will apply. So they have 3 more years to work under that 2014 manual because they applied in March 6th of 2019. So prior to the 22 date, they have until July 1st, 2027. If they don't start construction, then they will have to go to the 2019 manual. If they can start construction before then, they remain under that 2014 manual.
All right. So as I recognize that we are reading a stormwater permit, not the code right now. As I read this permit, it says each permittee, meaning in this case the city, shall adopt and make effective a local program not later than June 30, 2022 that meets the requirements of various sections of this permit. And then one of those requirements is what you just described, Ms. Pratt. So this, as I read this permit, it's a command to the city to adopt an ordinance that does this.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read the city code, I see something a little bit different. When I read the city code, and I know you weren't here for this part, so I apologize for ambushing you with this stuff.
Nope, that's okay.
It's the vesting requirements for subdivisions. So I had it up a moment ago, but let me dig it up. All right, so it's section 18.390, and then you go down to 020. I'll give you a moment to get there on your own screen.
Yep.
So again, we're in 18.390.020 exceptions. Stormwater regulations in chapter 13.28 IMC, permit fees and impact fees are not considered zoning and land use control ordinances for vesting purposes. And this is the critical part. Projects will be evaluated based on standards in place at the time of approval, not application. So that code language is what triggered in my mind this whole debate that we're having about the stormwater vesting. So I grant you, you have your permit issued by Ecology that tells you, adopt an ordinance that, essentially has some kind of vesting. The ordinance that's on the books, though, doesn't say that. The ordinance that's on the books says specifically that they don't vest. Now, Ms. Porter floated an idea. She said this very section that I was reading here, 18.390.020, was itself adopted in 2023. Maybe back in March 2019, maybe the vesting rules were different. So is that something you can speak to, Ms. Pratt? Was there a vesting exception in 2019?
I will have, and I apologize, I will have to look for that and hopefully provide it to you, soon after the close of the hearing. I don't have the Title 18 at the tip of my fingers from the old one, but I do have it, and obviously it's available and we can look at that.
Well, that's fine, because as it so happens, Ms. Porter herself is actually digging up some old code sections on unrelated issues to supply to me. So while she's doing that, she can dig up the old code on whatever vesting says. I do think it would be appropriate, given that there's, I don't want to call it a dispute because I'm not arguing with you people, but there is some question in my mind as to what the vesting rule is. So whenever we find the old vesting rule, I would appreciate a short memo from you, Ms. Pratt. What is the city's position on stormwater vesting? And my prediction is the old code's probably going to say what the new code says, which is that stormwater doesn't vest. Because we've got state appellate decisions that say exactly that. If stormwater doesn't vest now, and if stormwater didn't vest back in 2019, if it is the law that, to quote from the code, projects will be evaluated based on standards in place at the time of approval, not application, then I do think that means I have to apply the 2019 manual, not the 2014 manual. But if the vesting rules were different, or if you can find some other source of authority that says that the 2014 manual controls all the way through, then I'm all ears. I don't think that stormwater permit that you called up quite gets us there. I think we're going to need something from the code rather than from the city's stormwater permit. And the reason for that, as I said, is the permit commands the city to adopt an ordinance. So far, I haven't seen such an ordinance. The only ordinance that I know of is this 18.390.020, and it kind of says the opposite of that.
Okay.
So sorry to add to your burden there, Ms. Pratt.
No,
I do
understand.
Out. So yes, send me through Ms. Baer. Send me that NPDES permit. We'll get the old code provisions from Ms. Porter. Those will become exhibits as well, and then we'll get a memo from you, kind of tying it all together. And I'm not trying to bully you into coming out one way or the other. If you conclude that the 2014 manual is correct and you have some basis for that, and I'm persuaded by it, then so be it. If that's not the case, if you come out, kind of where I'm suspecting it'll come out, which is stormwater doesn't vest and never did. If that's where you come out, then, well, maybe we'll save that for the end of the hearing, because I want to hear the applicant first. But I will announce a possible plan at the end of the hearing if it turns out that stormwater didn't vest for this. How about that? All right. Anything further from us, for us, Ms. Pratt?
No.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in like this on short notice. I know it's very stressful to deal, but she did an excellent job. All right, so I was going to ask Ms. Porter if there were other members of the city team, but we have to rewind a little bit. It looks like we've got a member of the applicant team, Mr. Jeff Schwartz. All right, Mr. Schwartz, will you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And the spelling of name on my screen, Jeff, last name Schwartz. Is that spelling correct?
Well, actually, for clarification, this is actually Brian Beeman. I'm the principal engineer, geologist on the project. So
would
sorry.
you mind spelling your full name, please?
Full name is Brian, Brian, and last name is Beaman, Beaman.
Eeaman?
Yes.
All right. And you say you're a geologist on the project. Are you with Issaquah?
Yes, I'm the principal engineer and geologist.
Did you prepare the Issaquah geotech reports?
Jeff and I jointly prepared it. He's
Excellent.
a senior person in the company and I'm the final reviewer.
Well, boy, am I glad you're here because we have been talking about your reports in your absence all morning. So I realize that you've haven't had the benefit of all of that, but I have a lot of questions about the project. And again, you missed my opening remarks, but I'm not here to, poke holes in people's testimony or embarrass anyone or anything like that. What I am here to do is make sure that I have a clear understanding of the project, so I can make sure that all of the applicable criteria are being followed. And I need to do that before I can approve anything. And I certainly need to do that before I can figure out what conditions to write in. So why don't you just tell us well, let me think how to proceed here. I didn't have a plan for you because you kind of surprised me by showing up. I'm trying to think, do I want you just to kind of like summarize what you did? Why don't you do that? Why don't you just, summarize the review work that you did in preparing these reports, and then I'll tell you what some of the issues that we've been talking about with the different witnesses are.
Okay, I'm kind of at the same disadvantage that you are because I was just called like an hour ago to try to chime in. So we weren't, usually I'd take a couple hours at least to prepare, to reread our report because it's been several months since we've looked at it. But, in a nutshell, it's been around quite a while, this particular property. And as you probably know, that particular part of the hillside above Issaquah is just laced with old underground coal mines. And the coal mine, I mean, there's several seams that were mined, and the one that underlies this property, there's actually 3 of them. A couple of them are so deep that they don't really make a difference, but there's a couple of a shallow one that's very important to this project. 2 of them actually. So the city of Issaquah has always had, we've been involved with coal mine hazards in the city of Issaquah since, back in the 80s when it first came up, that maybe coal mines are an issue in the city of Renton and Black Diamond and Bellingham and Suncadia, the Quiellum area too. So we worked with the city, and we worked with City of Bellevue too, to develop some guidelines for coal mine hazards. And so a lot of this has arisen around those decades of research and looking at where sinkholes occur to kind of come up with what we consider safe. Because the interesting thing about coal mine hazards is that if you compare them to a landslide, you can look at a landslide and see it. Whereas the coal mine's under your feet and it's down there, but what, why is it a hazard, or if it is a hazard? Because some of the mines can be 2,000 feet deep, and we're certainly not worried about those. So what we're worried about are where they're shallow or where something could affect the surface that could damage structures, roads, or be a public safety issue. So through all that, the city has developed codes that are for coal mine hazards that are consistent with King County, are generally consistent with other cities that have the same problems. So the rule has been that if the mines are less than 150 feet deep, you need to be concerned. So then the other part of that is that where are the mines? Well, because that's important too. We need to position them. We can't see them. But fortunately, back when these mines were created, they were like the Boeing company of the day. Everybody worked in the coal mines back in the late 1800s. So your best engineers and surveyors were working for the mines too. So there are mine maps on file with the Department of Natural Resources that depict where these mines should be. So to take the next step then is that, well, we can use those maps and that gives you a general feel for where or how deep the mine is. But the next step from that would be to actually drill holes and actually drill through the mine. And that way we know exactly where it is. And that's what we did for this project. And if you've got a copy of the report on figure 3, it shows all the drill holes I would suspect that's an exhibit.
Yeah, it is, yes. It is exhibit 17.
Okay, so if you go to figure 3 of that exhibit, it will show, I think there's 35 borings at least that we drilled in a very small area to better understand not only where the mine is, but what its status of collapse is also. Because these mines were, I always tell people, the mines weren't created to create office space. They were created to mine coal, and they wanted to get out as much coal as they could before it collapsed on top of people. So typically these mines have collapsed because that was the intent of the miners, was to take as much coal out as they could and let them collapse behind them as they retreated. But we don't, we can't tell the city that without drilling. The city will assume that these mines are open until you prove otherwise. And that was one of the main purposes of drilling those 35 borings, was to also establish the status of collapse of these mine workings.
Interesting. So what is the status of collapse of these mine workings?
Well, the report would detail that, and I'm not prepared to get into the detailed discussion of that, but I think we found them to have some voids still open, but for the most part, they're collapsed. But when we know there's some openings, then we do have to consider those a hazard or potential hazard. And then the city has the ability to regulate those areas as being a severe coal mine hazard area. You just stay out of them. So that's what we did, was try to detail that as to where we thought there were severe hazards and where there were areas that you could do things in. And the next figure in the report, figure 4, shows those different levels of hazard. Are you looking at figure 4?
Yes, we were actually just looking at that before you came on. Yes, I'm
okay.
Figure 4.
So for that purpose, if it's in a D-class, or say if it's in a severe coal mine hazard area, that'd be the red cross hatching. You just want to stay away from those places because there's a potential for a sinkhole. And then the blue is a lower risk sinkhole hazard area where they're probably quite a bit deeper, but not deeper than 150 feet. Say they're like 100 feet deep. So they still classify as a severe hazard by code, but from our perspective, they're a lower risk. So in those areas, you may be able to do roads and non-occupied structures. And then the moderate coal mine hazards are areas that are actually quite deep. And what you might get there is just regional subsidence of the ground surface that could affect structures. But there's no development being done out in that part of this property, as far as I understand. So you could mitigate that, but there's probably, with the type of construction you do in these regional downwarping areas where you get cracks in the foundations, that kind of thing. And then there's areas that the city, regionally maps as a coal mine hazard area, but we can declassify those if we feel like they're safe based on the drilling.
Yes, how did you decide to declassify so much of this property?
Well, it was declassified based on us finding that the mine was either collapsed or the coal seam was actually intact and not mined. So it would not fall under the definition of severe coal mine hazard based on code.
Okay.
There's also that orange area that's called declassified coal mine hazard area, which is the number 4 mine reclamation area.
Yes.
That's actually a shallow tunnel that goes back into the mines, but the plan is to actually dig that up and put dirt back in, just basically dig it up and fill it back in.
Well, that was going to be kind of my next question. We had a summary from Mr. Woods about, what is the remediation and mitigation plan here? He talked about it in the broadest possible strokes, but I wonder if you can give us a little bit more detail.
Yeah, the actual reclamation or remediation plan was done by Chris Breeds. He's with Subterra in North Bend. And him and I work together a lot. We do the kind of the regional look at the coal mine hazard areas and the drilling. And he's a mining engineer, and he can come up with specifics on how to remediate or reclaim these shallow tunnels. So that there should be some information from Subterra in the record that would describe what that.
If you can just spell it out in your testimony, you know, what does it look like? You dig a hole and stuff dirt down there, or what does it look like?
Yeah, the tunnel's actually pretty shallow, and according to the mine maps, it's just a tunnel, so it's an access point to get back into the hill to where you can get into some more coal. So because it's so shallow, like 30 feet or so, you could effectively dig it up and then put soil, structural fill back in, and that would eliminate the hazard.
So that's for the orange area. Is there any remediation work that's being done for any of the other, the hazard areas or the declassified areas?
In the red crosshatching or the blue crosshatching, no. It's you can do some unoccupied structures in in the blue areas, but in the severe coal mine hazard area, you just want to not do anything. So the mitigation is avoidance.
One of the reasons I ask is we heard some public testimony from the neighbor to the north. If you're still looking at figure 4, Mr. Beeman, she lives about where contour line 180 is, where it specifically says 180. She's on the Donlin property to the north.
Okay.
So kind of right on the boundary there between the most severe and the slightly less severe coal mine hazard areas. She's concerned that any remediation work you guys do next door could somehow affect the mine workings under her property in a way that would be detrimental to her. Is that something that you guys looked at when you were working on the remediation plan?
Well, we may have looked at it, but we don't expect there to be anything different. I mean, we're not going to remediate that part of the property. And by remediating those areas of shallow mine workings, I can't imagine why that would affect something that's deeper. These mines aren't flat. They dip down into the ground at 40 degrees. So in the orange area, they're actually very, very shallow. But as you go further north, they become deep very quick. And in that crosshatched area, let me just check one thing here. Yeah, we did some drilling that went into that property. And if you go to figure 3, you got figure 3, Mr.
Yep.
Examiner?
Yep, the boreholes, yep.
Okay, you can see the gray shading. That's actually where the mine is from the mine maps. So as you can see from that, where those red or those pink cross picks are, those are where they went into the mine. So they were the mine openings. And those are inclined down at 40 degrees to the north. And so you can see that it's basically just a tunnel through that area. And then when you get onto her property, you start getting into some mine workings. But I can't think of any way that what is done on this property would affect that one.
Okay. Ms. Porter, what's going on?
I was just going to request that if it was okay, if I can share the screen so the members of the public can understand what area he's talking about.
Please. Oh, that's so kind of you. Yes. Yeah, so we're exhibit 17, and I think it's PDF 20. All right, yeah, great. Figure 3. All right, so these are the boreholes you were talking about, Mr. Beeman. And the gray area just to the north is what you were just discussing, right?
Yeah, and I think the property you're talking about is that long, narrow one.
Yep, that's right. That's the Donlin parcel. We heard from Ms. Donlin herself. She's actually watching right now.
Okay, so she can look at this, and from our studies that we've done, which are fairly detailed in determining where this mine is in the coal seam, that this gives her a kind of a 3-dimensional view of what underlies her property. It also tells us something about why we're calling some areas severe hazards and some not, because of that 150-foot mark.
Are those contour lines below ground?
Those are below ground, or no, those are
Interesting.
actually
So this
depth.
really is, you said three-dimensional. I was like, no, it's not. But then I was like, oh, the contours are actually under the ground.
Yeah, the dashed lines are actually depth to the mine workings.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, this is kind of a cool diagram. All right. Well, that may be of substantial interest to Ms. Donlin, just in her own life, totally unrelated to this.
Oh,
project.
sure. I mean, there's some areas on that property that are certainly developable out towards the west. It'd be trickier out towards Mine Hill Road for sure.
Because the mine is shallower at that location.
Yes.
What's so special about the 150-foot depth contour? Why is that the cutoff between severe mine hazard and not, or I guess declassified altogether?
No, that's a good question. And that's the number that came up way back in the 80s when we first started looking at these mines. And then it was somewhat arbitrary, not really arbitrarily, but we just, as a safety buffer, everybody agreed, and this included John Minato with the city of Issaquah at that time, that 150 foot deep mark was kind of the depth where we should not have to worry about any kind of sinkholes occurring. But since the 80s, I've taken it upon myself to actually study coal mine sinkholes, and I've looked at over 1,000 of them through the decades. And in those 1,000 sinkholes, there's only 3 that have occurred that are over 150 feet, or that are over 100 feet deep. And 2 of those occurred up on Issaquah Highland site that's overlain by clean outwash and gravels. And basically the mine breached into that gravel and it just kind of hourglassed right down into the mine, creating the sinkhole at the surface. And the 3rd one was over in Suncadia with the same kind of geologic conditions. So here we've got shallow bedrock. We don't have the gravels and things like that. So 150 feet is actually very conservative. But certainly from 0 to 50 feet, that's the high hazard zone for sure. When you go from 50 to 100 feet, you know, there may be 10% of the sinkholes occur in that area.
All right.
So it's been thought through.
There's a couple lines in your report that I wanted to ask you about. One of them says is that further ground proofing will be required to delineate the south edge of the mine in the vicinity of WAO 120. I'm not entirely sure what WAO 120 is. I think it may be a synonym for mine number 4. What is WAO 120?
Good question. I know what it is. I'm just trying to see if there's some figure that shows that. Where in the report do you read that? I'll scroll to it.
I didn't make a note of that in my notes.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's in an area that's not being considered for use. And the WAO has to do with a study that was done back in the early 80s by, I think it was a federal agency that looked at it. And these were known sinkholes that were on the surface. You could see them.
Okay. Let me see if I can find the exact reference for you here. So it's I have this thing as a PDF. It's PDF 6, document page 4. There's the first reference to it. A subsidence feature was observed related to the 3 mine entries to the number 1 and number 4 mines.
Okay.
Subsidence feature is located in the northeast corner of the Edwards South parcel. So.
Okay. No, I'm up to speed on this. Now that you've said that, it's actually that area of that's going to be remediated.
Okay.
So the northeast corner of the south parcel is in that area of all the pink cross picks.
I see the mine entrances. Yep.
And that would all be dug up and then replaced with structural fill.
Well, it sounds like from your report, there's some question about the southern extent of that feature.
Right. And that came out of peer review by the city. And we had recommended that we drill additional holes for that purpose.
When should that additional drilling occur? At what stage of this project?
I would think it would happen soon.
Like prior to me issuing preliminary plat approval?
Well, I think the city may not have the, the T's crossed and the I's dotted in that particular area that needs to be followed up on through the developer too. Because they're aware of it, and it was kind of the agreement that we would do a couple more holes just to shore up where things are at, where there might be a missing piece of information.
All right, and you think that should happen as soon as possible, huh?
Well, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure what ASAP means in this particular case, but it was part of the plan as far as I know, as far as I can recollect.
What do you mean it was part of the plan? What plan?
The plan that we had back and forth with the city with the peer reviewer, which was another geotechnical firm.
Okay.
And they rose the question about maybe we need more information into that area, and we agreed. And we came up with a plan for the developer to try to resolve that question.
Okay. All right. And then another question I had for you was, there's a statement that says dewatering the upgradient mine workings could cause hydrogeologic changes, which could be detrimental. What are we talking about with dewatering the upgradient mine workings?
Well, anytime you take water out of the ground, lower the groundwater table, you increase the stresses in the ground, and you can actually create subsidence just from soils themselves.
Who is taking water out of the ground right now?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd have to, that's a question I'd have to look at, and maybe that's part of the remediation plan, is to not have that occur.
So I'll read you what it says. The number 4 mine water level entry tunnel is likely filled with groundwater. This is in section 9.3.4 of the report. That's page 12, PDF 14. The number 4 mine water level entry tunnel is likely filled with groundwater. Excavation into this tunnel may result in large amounts of groundwater that cannot be effectively drained because of the network of mine workings connected to this tunnel. In addition, dewatering the upgradient mine workings could cause hydrogeologic changes which could be detrimental. For these reasons, we recommend that a seepage barrier be installed at the west end of the reclamation area to establish a plug in the tunnel. The seepage barrier can be constructed by a perpendicular trench filled with controlled density fill, or by a method proposed by the contractor, such as pressure grouting. What is going on here? What is this? What is this saying?
Good question. Where did you see this at? I'm not.
So it is page 12 of the report dated April 10, 2023. I have that document as Exhibit 17 in PDF form. It is PDF page 14 of that document. But if you are just looking at the document page number, it is page 12. In either case, the section header is 9.3.4.
Okay, no, I'm caught up with you now. Sorry. Right. But yeah, that's something that was done before Chris Breeze was involved with Subterra, who designed the actual reclamation or remediation. And we recommended that if you're going to fill this thing in, or if you're going to dewater the tunnel itself, which is not necessarily a subsidence hazard from the dewatering perspective, that they need to install that seepage barrier first. So you basically plug that tunnel to keep the water in the hill. And then
when you say keep the water in the hill, you mean basically to the properties to the north, right?
Getting my direction straight. Properties to the north and actually to the west, because the mines extend to the west.
If you didn't put a plug in, when you dug out the remediation area and took the water out, water would flow in from those properties, then creating a gap in the earth that might lead to subsidence? Is that the fear here?
Yeah, I think that the seepage barrier plug, and it's in the plans now, in the detailed plans of Subterra, that would be installed first before you dug up the tunnel, so you don't bring that water into you.
I've got you. Okay, all right. I think that is all quite clear. I don't think I have any further questions for you, Mr. Beeman. This has been extremely helpful to me. I really appreciate you jumping in on short notice and zero preparation.
Yeah,
But
no.
you seem to know what you're talking about, so I certainly have a lot of respect for the work you've done on this, the various reports that you've done, the obvious care that you've taken with this. It's very reassuring to me. So thank you for coming out.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and anytime you have questions about coal mines, I'm the guy to talk to. So it's one of those geeky kind of things for me. So
it's so interesting to learn about this stuff.
It is. It's very interesting.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Beeman. So I think we were just finishing up with public testimony. We'd heard from our city attorney, and she's going to do a memo. I think you, sir, were the last member of the applicant team who was going to go. So I think where we're at now is back to Ms. Porter, unless she was done. Well, maybe, how about this, Ms. Porter? In addition to responding to the public testimony, which that part I think you were done with, do you have any response to what we're learning from Mr. Beeman?
No, I don't have any response.
All right. What do you think about his testimony to the effect of, we don't know the southern location of those mine entrances. We do need to figure that out. It should be done soon. You and I had some discussion that Mr. Beeman wasn't here for about sequencing, basically. When does a report come in? When does a permit get issued? All of this kind of stuff. Everyone agrees that we have to check the southern extent of these mine entrances. Where in that sequence that we were talking about do you think that should occur?
I'm trying to pull something up. So I believe what is being spoke about is conditions of approval or mitigation measures that are addressed in the SEPA. And in that, I think they kind of talk about when those things should occur. But I agree, if we're talking about ASAP, then after a decision is rendered, then the applicant would then try to address those mitigation measures, and then the city would issue a site work permit for them to move forward. Now, again, this project.
I agree with you, Ms. Porter. So I'm looking at your condition 18, that's the one that references the SEPA mitigation measures. It references SEPA mitigation measure number 3. Prior to coal remediation work, additional exploration work must fully delineate the coal mine tunnels impacting the project. One of those is, I think, the very feature we were talking about. Yeah, the southern limit. Well, I don't want to swear that I've correctly figured out all of the names that these engineers use for it, but it sure looks to me like they're thinking about the southern limits of everything.
Yes.
So that would occur prior to remediation work. In other words, as part of the application for the site work permit, right?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know if that's as soon as possible, but that certainly seems to be a reasonable time to do it. So you couldn't do the site remediation work without it. I can see that. So I think I'm happy with the order of operations here, believe it or not. I think I'm satisfied. Still waiting on you to see a well-drafted condition of approval that specifies it. But yes, as long as we're all talking about the same thing, and I think we are, then I think we are good on that. All right.
Just to clarify again, it would be building permits wouldn't occur until after the final plat. So again, a lot of this work wouldn't happen prior to.
Yeah, so I think it goes preliminary plat, then they delineate the southern edge of this stuff and get their site work permit, then final plat, then building permit.
Correct.
And in terms of when the physical work gets done, that could probably happen after final plat, but before building permit, right?
Right. So once we issue a site work permit, technically work can start. So
they do that work. And then I'm not sure where final plat would occur, but I think we would I don't think we can do final plat until the site work is done, because it's possible in the course of this site work, they may find out, oh gosh, look how far south this stuff extends. It's a huge problem. You can't build a house there. So I think we should do that before final plat.
Oh, yes, definitely. So I was just going to say, technically, this project is vested to the old code, and so they could bond for this work. But if we're going to have this condition, then that would require them to do the work prior to a final plat.
Yep, and I think we should. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So I think you and I are on the same page, Ms. Porter. My last question for you, which is not on minds, is so we heard from our city attorney, Ms. Pratt, that she was going to look into the vesting question a little bit more. She's going to write me a memo. Let's say, in a worst case scenario for the developer, Ms. Pratt concludes that stormwater doesn't vest. What should we do then? And I'll tell you what I'm thinking about, and I'll tell you why. I think we should hold the record open for the developer to submit, essentially a revision to the preliminary stormwater plan, which I think is Exhibit 20, and potentially a revised plat map, because it's quite possible if we have to apply the 2019 manual and they do their drainage report, they may find, ooh, that stormwater tract is undersized given the much tougher standards we have in 2019. We need to make it bigger. And the reason I think that may happen is we heard testimony essentially to that effect from Mr. Woods. He said, we may need to redraw some of these lot lines. I think he said he would be okay with doing that if the city concluded it was necessary. And we'll give the applicant team the last word on this in case I'm, misstating what they were saying. So that's what I'm thinking we should do if it turns out that stormwater doesn't vest. Now, if stormwater does vest, then I'm satisfied with the status of the review that's been done. We had the testimony from the city engineer that it was fine. It's just a matter of which standard to apply. Now over to you, Ms. Porter. What do you think we should do in the event that stormwater doesn't vest?
Usually I like to take a minute to think these types of things through. I guess my concern of leaving the record open is to have the design team to do something like this could take a couple of months, because you have to get your design team, staff has to review it. There could be a couple different rounds, again, which is why this project has kind of taken a while, just because you can see there's a lot of challenges on the site. So I guess I have concerns leaving the record open for something like this for so long. So
what would be the concern? I mean, it's our job is not to rush this project to completion. That's the developer's job. Our job is to make sure that the code is followed.
Correct. I would like a minute to defer with my team and legal on this one. Okay. Just because, I think there's a lot of implications to something like this.
All right, let's do a 5-minute break anyways, and then we'll come back. I'll hear your thoughts on, or do you want more? How much conferring time do you need?
I would have to see if the city attorney is still available. So, is it okay if I could at least get something maybe by the end of the day? Just because, again, I would have to get the
that's
city attorney.
Fine. Well, I mean, yeah. The only reason I'm hesitating is I was hoping you would tell me your preference, and then the applicant would have a chance to respond to that here on the record. If you're sending it at the end of the day, that kind of deprives the applicant of a chance to respond.
I know. So I kind of agree with Kim. Should you approve the plat? And if it's discovered and we have a condition stating that the plat is required to follow the stormwater rules in place, and that then changes the lot lines per code, they are required to come back to the hearing examiner for a decision. So.
So maybe it says, you have to follow, again, this is all predicated on the assumption that we have to follow 2019. So maybe the condition says you have to follow the 2019 manual. If it turns out that that following the 2019 manual would require revisions to your plat, then you have to, essentially, what would it be at that point? A plat amendment? I'm not even sure.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's a plat amendment. It would be considered a significant an amendment in the code that they're vested to. There is only a couple of things that would allow them to they can make minor changes to then proceed to the final plat. And I think changing lot lines like this would be a major amendment, so that they would be required to come back to
me
for you.
I'm sure they'll just relish that opportunity. All right. So that's your recommendation then, it sounds like. I don't know, do you even need to talk to the city attorney? If that's what you think I should do, then so be it.
Yeah, I'm not confident, but that's my recommendation.
I mean, ultimately, it's my call to figure out how to sort all this out. And maybe we're just borrowing trouble. Maybe the city attorney will have this really persuasive memo that says that 2014 is the only thing we need to worry about. All right. I don't have anything further for you, Ms. Porter. Did you have any last thoughts for me on any subject?
I think I just I misspoke, and I just want to clarify. Mine Hill Road does have a curb on it, so again, I just want to clear that up, and
Okay.
that's it for me.
All right. Thank you so much for all your time today and fielding these. They're hard questions, and you had no prep time, so it is difficult, folks. She makes it look easy, but what she's doing is very difficult, and it reflects a lot of experience and training that she's had in this field. So a really top-notch job by Ms. Porter, and really all of our witnesses. But she's been in the hot seat the longest, and she's held her ground really well. So I really, really appreciate you subjecting yourself to this process. Okay, the last word, folks, belongs to the applicant team. So let's bring on Ms. Mahoney for starters. Any other members of the team are welcome to chime in as well. Ms. Mahoney, reactions to public testimony, the comments and recommendations of Ms. Porter, anything else?
My only reaction is to Ms. Porter's most recent testimony, which speaks to the appropriate recommendation of a condition related to the stormwater design. And if we just continue to carry out this worst case assumption for the developer, that the city attorney will come back and say that vesting does not apply and we need to design the stormwater management on the site against 2019 ecology standards, then I think that an appropriate response is to allow for the applicant, the property owner, to be able to take on the risk of moving forward with the understanding that a revised stormwater design is going to need to be submitted to the city for their review and could potentially lead to a plat alteration to be considered by the hearing examiner. But that can be conditioned with the potential approval of this preliminary plat decision.
So you basically liked Ms. Porter's suggestion?
Yes. I like Ms. Porter's suggestion, and she liked mine. So
it was your idea to begin with, huh?
Yes, it was, and she was on my side. So
duly noted. Ms. Mahoney was the one who came up with the idea of solving this through conditioning. All right. Well, so I think what we'll do is this. Oh, did you have anything further on any other subject?
No.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is this. I'm waiting on several items from Ms. Porter. These were the old codes, and I've kind of lost track of what exhibit number we got up to with all of that. So just kind of number them sequentially, as many as you think. Critical areas, obviously, the definition and standards for severe mine hazards, the landscaping stuff, the old vesting code, and then anything else that I may have overlooked, because I really need to have those old codes. And if I'm writing the decision and I find I need one and I don't have it, then I have to reopen the record and we get more delay. So that for starters. I wanted a copy of your PowerPoint that you led off with because I liked it.
Affidavit of
the placeholder thing. We were going to get a memo from Ms. Pratt on the subject of stormwater vesting, and then you were going to do, we can call it an addendum to the staff report, I guess, with conditions for kind of the phasing of the additional geotech review that needs to be done, the geotech work that needs to be done, the final report on that work that needs to be done, and how that relates to the site work permit, the final plat, and the building permits. You were going to spell all that out in plain English and give us all a roadmap for me to look at, phrased as a possible condition of approval. Another condition of approval was assuming the city attorney comes out and says stormwater doesn't vest. Please send me some suggested language on what you think I should do in terms of addressing that through conditioning. And folks, I'm not sure that I will go that route. I'm also not saying that I won't. I'll take a look, first of all, at what the city attorney says, and second, what Ms. Porter comes up with in terms of what such a condition would look like. And then I guess I'll have to make the call. If we stick a condition like that in there, is that enough that the hearing examiner can say, adequate provision for stormwater has been made. And I don't know. So that's a little uncertainty for you all to worry about. I'm not trying to be coy or anything like that. I'll know more once I see the language. But adequate provision for stormwater is the standard that I need to meet, and then you folks can design something that you hope meets that standard. All right, I think that was all of our extra materials that need to come in. I will hold the record open for those materials only. It is not open for any other purpose. So it is not open for like additional public comment or anything like that. Once I get all of those documents, which I will receive through Ms. Baer, once I get all that, we will declare the record on this matter closed. So if I get all that stuff today, we'll declare it closed today. If it's tomorrow, it'll be tomorrow, or however long it takes. Once the record is closed, I think under both the local code and actually state law in the case of subdivisions, I think I have 10 working days to issue my decision on this plat application. I'll issue it in writing with findings and conclusions. I'll send that to Ms. Baer. She will distribute that decision to the applicant and the relevant city staff and the parties of record. So with that, I think that's everything I've got today. Thank you all so much for your testimony today. I really appreciate the time that folks have put into this. I thought we had some very thoughtful testimony from the witnesses and especially the members of the public. And it did kind of guide my thinking, and it guided my questions to our geologist expert and to our staff as well. So thank you folks for helping me to educate myself on this project here. You've certainly made my job a lot easier with such high quality testimony from everybody. So I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's everything I've got. Oh, yes, Ms. Baer is raising her hand. Yes.
I was trying to figure out. For anybody of the individuals that are online right now that I do not have their contact information for, I know there was a phone number on there sometime earlier. I put my email in the chat, and if you are not identified as a party of record per the name on your computer connection here today, please just send me an email and I will get you follow up with the notes, the findings and conclusions by email as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Baer. Thank you for riding shotgun on this case the whole time. Ms. Baer has been organizing the exhibits and preparing the hearing room, making sure that the witness testimony comes in and that everyone has everything they need. And she'll be the one juggling these additional things that Ms. Porter sends in. So she puts a lot of work in on these. It is not easy to keep the record organized in these cases. I've seen some very chaotic. I actually just got an email from a jurisdiction which shall remain nameless. It's not Issaquah. And they're like, oh, Mr. Examiner, do you have copies of the following exhibits? I'm like, my God, why don't you have copies yourselves? Why are you asking me on my personal computer if I have copies? The answer is they don't have Candy Bear working for them. So they're all screwed. The other thing I'd ask from you, Ms. Baer, is I would like a copy of the audio recording, like a download link to this recording. I refer back to the recording when I'm drafting my decision. That doesn't have to happen today. I'm not going to be drafting today, but if you can get that to me by the end of the week, I can get started on this. So with that, I thank you all again, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.